Close your eyes and picture a world where leaves whisper ancient secrets, where rivers hum lullabies, and the air pulses with life. Welcome to the Amazon, the Earth's last uncharted frontier. Breathe deeply now, and let yourself drift into a realm that exists beyond the reach of hurried footsteps and glowing screens. Here, in this vast green cathedral, time moves differently. The Amazon rainforest stretches across 6 million square kilometers of South America, a living tapestry woven from countless threads of life. Imagine floating above this endless canopy, where emerald crowns of cecropia trees catch the morning mist, and ancient Brazil nut giants stand like pillars holding up the sky. Feel the gentle warmth of tropical air caressing your skin as you begin this journey into one of Earth's most magnificent wildernesses. The Amazon encompasses an area larger than Australia, a green continent within a continent where the rules of civilization give way to older laws written in the language of photosynthesis and precipitation, predator and prey, season and cycle. This is a place where a single tree can host more species than entire temperate forests, where rivers the color of café owe late wind through landscapes that have remained essentially unchanged since the age of dinosaurs. Here, evolution has been painting with the most extravagant palette imaginable for 60 million years, creating a masterpiece of biological diversity that continues to surprise and humble human understanding. As you float through your imagination above this green immensity, notice how the forest extends to every horizon without break or boundary, an ocean of vegetation that breathes with the rhythm of geological time. Somewhere far below, in clearings invisible from this height, indigenous peoples are beginning their day with practices that connect them directly to cycles of sun and rain, growth and harvest, that have sustained human life in these forests for millennia. The morning light filtering through the canopy creates a cathedral effect, with shafts of golden illumination piercing the green darkness to create spaces of transcendent beauty. These light gaps, where ancient giants have fallen to create openings in the forest's roof, become nurseries for the next generation of trees, each one competing for the precious resource of sunlight with a patience that measures success not in months or years but in decades and centuries. Listen now to the morning symphony beginning around you, the liquid notes of the musician wren weaving melodies that would challenge any human composer, the rhythmic hammering of woodpeckers searching for insects in the bark of towering trees, the distant roar of howler monkeys announcing their territorial claims with voices that can carry for miles through the dense vegetation. This acoustic landscape represents one of the planet's most complex soundscapes, a three-dimensional audio environment where sounds travel at different speeds and frequencies, depending on humidity, temperature, and the density of vegetation through which they pass. Scientists studying these soundscapes have discovered that they can identify dozens of bird species by their calls alone, each one occupying a specific acoustic niche that allows multiple species to communicate simultaneously without interference. The air here carries scents unknown in other places: the green smell of chlorophyll processing sunlight into energy, the rich earthiness of soil that has been accumulating organic matter for millions of years, the sweet perfume of flowers that have evolved to attract specific pollinators with fragrances tailored to their sensory preferences, the musky undertones of animals whose presence is more often detected by smell than sight. Breathe in these exotic perfumes slowly, letting them transport you deeper into the forest's embrace. Each inhalation brings thousands of molecules that have been exhaled by trees, processed by fungi, carried on the wings of butterflies, and transformed through the countless chemical reactions that comprise the forest's metabolism. You are breathing the forest's breath, participating in gas exchanges that connect your lungs directly to the photosynthetic processes occurring in leaves hundreds of feet above your head. The Amazon's vastness defies easy comprehension. If it were a country, it would rank as the sixth largest in the world, larger than India and nearly as large as Australia. Its river system drains water from an area encompassing parts of 9 different countries, while its forests contain an estimated 16,000 tree species, more variety than exists in all of North America and Europe combined. This biological richness emerges from a combination of factors that make the Amazon unique among Earth's ecosystems. The region's position straddling the equator ensures consistent temperatures and abundant solar energy throughout the year. The massive Andes mountain range to the west creates weather patterns that bring regular precipitation, while the Atlantic Ocean to the east provides moisture that gets recycled through the forest in cycles that can see the same water molecule evaporate and condense dozens of times before finally reaching the ocean. The forest's age contributes significantly to its complexity. Unlike temperate regions that were repeatedly scoured by ice ages, tropical South America has maintained continuous forest cover for tens of millions of years, allowing evolution to experiment with forms and relationships of almost incomprehensible intricacy. Species have had time to develop partnerships so intimate that their survival becomes completely interdependent, creating ecological networks that function more like single superorganisms than collections of individual creatures. Consider the relationship between Brazil nut trees and agouti rodents, a partnership that illustrates the Amazon's capacity for creating unexpected connections. Brazil nut pods are so hard that only agoutis possess jaws strong enough to crack them open. The agoutis eat some of the nuts immediately but bury others throughout the forest as food caches, inadvertently planting new Brazil nut trees in the process. Without agoutis, Brazil nut trees cannot reproduce. Without Brazil nut trees, agoutis lose a crucial food source during lean seasons. Such relationships exist throughout the forest at every scale, from bacteria living symbiotically in the roots of trees to complex pollination networks that connect hundreds of plant species with their specific animal partners. These ecological webs are so intricate that removing a single species can trigger cascading effects that alter entire ecosystems, making conservation efforts necessarily complex and holistic. The forest floor beneath the towering canopy represents a world unto itself, characterized by perpetual twilight and constant humidity. Here, decomposition occurs so rapidly that nutrients released by fallen leaves are immediately absorbed by the shallow root systems of trees, creating one of nature's most efficient recycling systems. A leaf that falls on Monday might be completely broken down and incorporated into new growth by the following weekend. This rapid nutrient cycling explains why Amazon soils are generally quite poor, despite supporting such luxuriant vegetation. The nutrients are not stored in the soil but locked up in the living biomass of the forest itself, constantly circulating through the system in cycles measured in days rather than years. When forests are cleared, these nutrients are quickly lost to erosion or leaching, making it difficult to establish sustainable agriculture on formerly forested land. The canopy, stretching like a green roof over this terrestrial ecosystem, creates multiple vertical habitats that support dramatically different communities of plants and animals. The emergent layer, where the tallest trees poke their crowns above the general canopy level, experiences intense sunlight and strong winds that would be lethal to species adapted to the forest interior. Here live harpy eagles, whose incredible eyesight allows them to spot sloths moving through the canopy from distances of several miles. Below the emergent layer, the main canopy forms a nearly continuous roof of leaves that intercepts most of the sunlight before it can reach the forest floor. This canopy layer hosts the majority of the forest's animal species, including most of its mammals, birds, and countless invertebrates. Many of these animals spend their entire lives in the trees, never descending to the ground, while others move between canopy and understory following food sources and seasonal patterns. The understory, existing in the perpetual twilight beneath the main canopy, requires different survival strategies. Plants here often have enormous leaves to capture what little light filters down from above, while animals tend to rely more heavily on hearing and smell than sight for navigation and communication. Many understory plants produce flowers and fruits directly on their trunks rather than on their branches, making them accessible to ground-dwelling and understory-dwelling animals that serve as pollinators and seed dispersers. As your imaginary journey continues deeper into the forest's heart, notice how the boundaries between individual organisms begin to blur. Epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, without parasitizing them, festoon every tree trunk and branch, creating aerial gardens that exist entirely independent of the ground. These epiphytes, including orchids, bromeliads, and ferns, obtain all their nutrients from rainwater and organic debris that accumulates in the crevices of bark. Some of these aerial gardens become complex ecosystems in their own right. Large bromeliads collect rainwater in their cup-shaped leaf arrangements, creating pools that serve as breeding sites for frogs, nurseries for aquatic insects, and drinking fountains for birds and mammals. Scientists have found that a single large bromeliad can support over 200 species of small animals, making these aerial plants equivalent to tiny lakes suspended in the forest canopy. The vines and lianas that drape the forest in living curtains represent another category of plants that have found innovative solutions to the challenge of reaching sunlight in a crowded forest. Some lianas begin life on the forest floor and grow toward light with single-minded determination, eventually reaching lengths of over 3,000 feet as they wind through the canopy. These plant cables create highways that allow arboreal animals to travel between trees without ever touching the ground, effectively expanding the habitat available to species that live their entire lives above the forest floor. The morning mist that rises from the forest carries with it the breath of countless plants engaged in transpiration, the process by which trees release water vapor through their leaves. This biological air conditioning system creates local weather patterns that keep the forest interior cool and humid even when temperatures outside the forest become uncomfortably hot. A single large tree can transpire over 100 gallons of water per day, collectively creating the rainfall patterns that sustain the entire ecosystem. This hydrological cycle operates at a scale that affects weather patterns across South America and beyond. Moisture that evaporates from the Atlantic Ocean falls as rain on the eastern edge of the Amazon basin, gets recycled through the forest multiple times as it moves westward, and eventually contributes to snowfall in the Andes Mountains thousands of miles away. Scientists estimate that about half of the rainfall in the Amazon basin comes from water that has been recycled through the forest rather than directly from oceanic evaporation. The indigenous peoples who call this forest home have developed an understanding of these cycles that allows them to predict weather patterns weeks or months in advance by observing subtle changes in animal behavior, plant flowering patterns, and atmospheric conditions. This knowledge, accumulated over thousands of years of careful observation, represents a sophisticated environmental science that complements and sometimes exceeds the accuracy of modern meteorological forecasting. As the morning progresses and the forest comes alive with the activities of its countless inhabitants, you begin to appreciate the incredible complexity of the ecological relationships that sustain this biological wonderland. Every sound you hear represents a communication system evolved over millions of years, Every movement you observe reflects behavioral adaptations fine-tuned by natural selection. Every fragrance you detect signals chemical messages, passing between organisms in languages that human science is only beginning to decode. The forest's patience becomes apparent as you slow your breathing to match its rhythms. Here, success is measured not in quarterly profits or annual achievements, but in the ability to persist across geological timescales, to adapt to changing conditions while maintaining essential functions, to participate in the slow dance of evolution that creates beauty and complexity beyond any human design. Let yourself sink deeper into this green meditation, where every tree is a teacher, every animal a philosopher, every flower a poet expressing truths that can only be understood through direct experience rather than intellectual analysis. The Amazon offers not just biological diversity but cognitive diversity, alternative ways of understanding relationship and time, success and beauty, progress and wisdom. Feel the weight of modern concerns beginning to lift from your shoulders as you tune into frequencies that have been broadcasting continuously for millions of years, the patient growth of trees reaching toward light, the seasonal migrations of animals following resources across vast landscapes, the chemical conversations between plants warning each other of insect attacks or sharing nutrients through underground fungal networks. This is your invitation to rest in the Amazon's timeless embrace, to let its ancient wisdom wash over you like warm rain, to discover in its green depths the peace that comes from recognizing your place in systems larger and older and more beautiful than human civilization, yet intimately connected to your own breath, your own heartbeat, your own capacity for wonder at the magnificent complexity of life on Earth. Feel the weight of the day's worries begin to lift from your shoulders, carried away on the gentle current of imagination. The Amazon calls to something deep within us, that primal longing for mystery and wonder that lives in every human heart. This is a place where jaguars pad silently along hidden trails, where pink dolphins surface in mirror-still waters, and where indigenous peoples have walked in harmony with the forest for thousands of years. Tonight, we embark on a journey through this magnificent wilderness, a peaceful exploration that will carry us from the canopy to the forest floor, from rushing rivers to ancient ruins hidden beneath vines and time. We'll meet the creatures that call this place home, learn of the people who guard its secrets, and discover cities that slept beneath the green embrace for centuries. The Amazon basin covers an area larger than the continental United States, its heart beating with the rhythm of countless streams that flow like arteries toward the great river. In 2025, this forest continues to reveal new wonders to those who approach with patience and respect. Scientists still discover new species almost weekly here, as if the forest itself chooses when to share its gifts. Recently, they found fish with scales that shimmer like jewels, and flowers that bloom only in the deepest shadows, their petals soft as whispered prayers. Let the day's tensions dissolve like morning mist over the river. Feel your breathing slow to match the ancient rhythm of the forest, where every exhale feeds the trees, and every inhale carries the essence of life itself. The Amazon's embrace is warm and welcoming, a mother's arms that have sheltered countless generations of living beings. As we begin our journey, picture yourself in a small wooden boat drifting down a tributary where the water reflects the infinite green of the canopy above. The gentle lapping of water against the hull creates a natural metronome, slowing your heartbeat, calming your mind. Somewhere in the distance, a toucan calls, its voice echoing through the cathedral of trees like a blessing. This is your invitation to rest, to wonder, to let the Amazon's timeless wisdom wash over you like warm rain. Close your eyes a little tighter now, and let the forest carry you into its heart, where every leaf holds a story and every shadow promises peace. The Amazon River itself begins as a tiny spring high in the Peruvian Andes, Yet by the time it reaches the Atlantic Ocean, it carries more water than the next 7 largest rivers combined. Think of how this mirrors our own journey tonight, beginning with a single moment of quietude that will grow into hours of peaceful exploration. In this vast wilderness, cities exist that are accessible only by river or air, floating like islands in an ocean of green. The people who live here have learned patience from the forest itself, understanding that the Amazon reveals its secrets only to those who move with the rhythm of the seasons, who listen more than they speak, who observe more than they act. Tonight, as you drift deeper into sleep, let the Amazon be your guide. Allow its ancient wisdom to quiet the chatter of your mind, its timeless presence to slow the racing of your thoughts. Here in this sanctuary of green, you are safe, you are welcome, and you are home. The forest breathes around you now, its exhalation sweet with the scent of orchids and rich earth. Every rustle of leaves is a lullaby, every distant bird call a gentle reminder that you are part of something infinitely larger and more beautiful than the concerns that filled your day. Breathe deeply, and let the Amazon's embrace carry you into its heart, where wonders await and peace flows as freely as the river itself. Imagine now that you're floating gently downstream on a river the color of café au lait, its surface disturbed only by the occasional rise of a river dolphin or the splash of a fish jumping toward the fading light. The banks on either side rise like green walls, but welcoming walls, dense with life and possibility. Somewhere high above, howler monkeys begin their evening chorus, their voices carrying across the water like ancient chants. The Amazon calls to dreamers and explorers still, its mysteries unfolding like flowers that bloom only in moonlight. Scientists estimate that we've discovered only a fraction of the species that live here, meaning that tonight, as you rest, millions of creatures unknown to science are living their quiet lives in the shadows of the forest. Perhaps a butterfly with wings like stained glass windows is settling onto a flower that has never been catalogued, or a frog the size of your thumbnail is singing a song that has never been recorded. This is the magic of the Amazon. It remains perpetually mysterious, perpetually surprising, a living reminder that our world still holds spaces where wonder thrives untouched. As we drift deeper into this documentary and deeper into relaxation, let this thought comfort you. There are still places on Earth where magic lives, where every day brings new discoveries, where the impossible regularly becomes possible. Feel the gentle rocking motion of our imaginary boat as we float toward the heart of the world's greatest forest. The sound of water lapping against the wooden hull mingles with the evening symphony of the jungle, 1,000 instruments playing in perfect harmony, a lullaby composed over millions of years of evolution. The heart of the Amazon, a vast and silent world. Picture yourself now at the confluence of great rivers, where waters from different tributaries meet and mingle, creating swirling patterns on the surface like liquid marble. You are approaching Manaus, a city of 2 million souls that sits like a jewel in the crown of the Amazon basin, surrounded by an ocean of green that stretches to every horizon. The approach to Manaus by river reveals the dramatic contrast between human settlement and pristine wilderness that characterizes so much of the Amazon region. One moment you are traveling through landscapes that appear completely untouched by human presence, where the only sounds are those of the forest and river, and the next you round a bend to see the skyline of a modern city rising from the green maze like something from a dream. Manaus exists in splendid isolation, accessible by river and air, but connected to the outside world by no paved roads that function reliably year-round. Highway 319, which theoretically connects the city to the rest of Brazil, remains unpaved for much of its length, transforming into an impassable quagmire during the rainy season and a choking dust corridor during the dry months. This isolation is not a barrier but a blessing, keeping the rhythm of life here synchronized with the pulse of the forest itself, rather than the demands of distant metropolitan centers. The highway's condition reflects the Amazon's resistance to conventional infrastructure development. Engineers have struggled for decades to create permanent roads through landscapes that flood annually, where the expansion and contraction of clay soils breaks up pavement, where termites and other insects consume organic materials used in construction, and where the sheer distance between population centers makes maintenance extremely expensive and logistically challenging. This infrastructure challenge has forced Amazon communities to develop alternative approaches to transportation and commerce that work with rather than against natural systems. The result is a civilization that remains intimately connected to river rhythms, seasonal cycles, and the forest's own schedule of abundance and scarcity. The Amazon River here is so wide that standing on one bank, the other side fades into the misty distance like the shore of an inland sea. During the dry season, the river reveals beaches of white sand that exist nowhere during the floods, while the wet season creates a vast inland ocean where the horizon disappears in water and sky. Local pilots navigate these changing waterscapes by instinct and experience, reading the subtle signs of current and weather that have guided river travelers for generations. These pilots represent a living library of traditional ecological knowledge, their understanding of river conditions passed down through families and communities over multiple generations. They can predict weather changes days in advance by observing cloud formations, animal behavior, and subtle changes in water color or temperature. Their boats, adapted specifically for Amazon conditions, can navigate in water only inches deep or handle the massive waves that develop when strong winds blow across the river's vast surface. There are no bridges across the Amazon River anywhere along its entire length, no concrete spans interrupting its flow from the Andes to the Atlantic. This absence of bridges is not merely a matter of engineering challenge or economic constraint, but reflects a deeper recognition that the river's seasonal flood cycles are essential to the ecosystem's health, and that permanent structures would fundamentally alter hydrological patterns that have sustained life here for millions of years. Instead, ferries carry vehicles and people across these chocolate-colored waters, their journey a meditation on patience and trust. These ferries operate on schedules determined more by river conditions and community needs than by rigid timetables, creating a transportation system that remains flexible and responsive to natural rhythms, rather than attempting to impose artificial regularity on inherently variable systems. Picture the meeting of waters, where the dark Rio Negro encounters the sandy-colored Amazon River. For several miles, these two great streams flow side by side without mixing, creating a natural boundary as distinct as a line drawn on a map. The Rio Negro's water is warmer and moves more slowly, stained dark by tannins from decomposing vegetation, while the Amazon River runs cooler and faster, its light brown color coming from sediments carried down from the Andes Mountains. The different temperatures, speeds, and chemical compositions of these waters create a temporary barrier that prevents immediate mixing, allowing tourists and locals alike to witness one of nature's most dramatic visual demonstrations of fluid dynamics. Eventually, like old friends finding common ground, the waters blend into one magnificent flow, but the initial separation provides a powerful metaphor for the way different systems can coexist while maintaining their distinct identities before ultimately joining in common purpose. This phenomenon occurs throughout the Amazon basin, wherever major tributaries join the main river, each confluence creating unique patterns and colors that reflect the different landscapes and geological formations the waters have traversed on their journey to the sea. These mixing zones often become especially rich fishing areas, as the different water chemistries create conditions that concentrate nutrients and attract diverse fish populations. From Manaus, the forest extends in every direction as far as the eye can see and far beyond, an unbroken carpet of green punctuated only occasionally by the silver thread of a river or the small brown square of a clearing. This is one of the last places on Earth where you can travel for hours and see no sign of human presence, where the horizon promises mystery rather than familiarity, where the landscape retains the power to inspire awe through its sheer immensity and apparent endlessness. Flying over this canopy, you would see an almost fractal pattern of tree crowns, each one slightly different in size and color, creating a texture that appears homogeneous from a distance, but reveals incredible complexity upon closer examination. Scientists studying these aerial views have learned to identify different forest types, successional stages, and even individual tree species by their distinctive canopy signatures, turning the forest's overhead view into a readable text that tells stories of ecology, climate, and time. The city of Iquitos in Peru shares this splendid isolation, though its character differs significantly from Manaus in ways that reflect the cultural and political differences between Brazil and Peru. With 500,000 inhabitants, Iquitos stands as the largest city in the world inaccessible by road, a distinction that has shaped its culture and economy in profound ways. From Iquitos, a single 100-kilometer highway stretches to the village of Nauta before ending abruptly at the forest's edge, like a sentence left unfinished by someone who realized that some places resist completion. This road to Nauta represents one of the few attempts to create land-based transportation infrastructure deep in the Amazon, and its limited extent illustrates the challenges involved in such projects. The road requires constant maintenance to remain passable, as the forest's aggressive growth quickly begins to reclaim any cleared space, while seasonal flooding can make sections impassable for months at a time. Everything that arrives in Iquitos comes by river or air, maintaining the city's connection to the ancient rhythms of Amazonian life. This isolation has preserved cultural traditions and economic practices that might otherwise have been overwhelmed by global commercial pressures, while also creating unique adaptations to the challenges of life in one of the world's most remote urban centers. The river here serves every function that highways, railways, and shipping lanes serve in other parts of the world. It is highway, marketplace, source of food and water, playground for children, and pathway to adventure all in one magnificent waterway. Floating gas stations drift with the current, their owners living aboard for months at a time, following routes determined by seasonal patterns of river traffic and community fuel needs. These floating fuel suppliers represent remarkable examples of adaptation to Amazon conditions, their boats designed to handle everything from shallow dry season navigation to the massive waves that can develop during storms on the river's vast surface. Their operators maintain complex networks of relationships with riverside communities, often serving as informal banks, news carriers, and communication links between isolated settlements. Floating grocery stores bob at anchor near riverside communities, their shelves stocked with everything from fresh fish to batteries, their presence a reminder of human ingenuity and adaptation to environments that challenge conventional approaches to commerce and distribution. These stores operate on credit systems based on personal relationships and seasonal payment schedules, creating economic networks that reflect the forest's own patterns of abundance and scarcity. Imagine gliding past these floating establishments in the golden light of late afternoon, when the water transforms into a mirror of molten metal reflecting the sky's changing colors. The sight of these commercial vessels, so perfectly adapted to their aquatic environment, creates a sense of witnessing a civilization that has found its proper relationship with the natural systems that sustain it. The water reflects the sky like a mirror, disturbed only by the gentle wake of your passage and the occasional rise of a river dolphin or the splash of a fish jumping toward the fading light. Children wave from the banks, their laughter carrying across the water like music, their lives unfolding in rhythms determined by river cycles rather than school calendars or work schedules. Women wash clothes at the river's edge, their movements rhythmic and unhurried, part of daily routines that connect domestic life directly to the natural systems that provide water, transportation, and livelihood. This is life lived in harmony with the forest's tempo, where the river's rise and fall determines the rhythm of seasons more than any calendar, where success is measured by adaptation and resilience rather than accumulation and growth. These riverside communities have developed architectural solutions that work with rather than against the river's seasonal changes. Houses built on stilts rise and fall with the water level, their gardens planted in floating boxes that bob gently with the current, their livestock grazing on platforms that adjust automatically to flood conditions. Children learn to swim before they walk, and families measure time not by clocks but by the river's moods and the forest's seasonal patterns. In 2025, government officials continue to debate plans to pave Highway 319 and build the first bridge across the Amazon River near Manaus. These infrastructure projects spark passionate discussions about progress and preservation, development and environmental protection, connection and isolation. Proponents argue that better transportation links would bring economic opportunities and improved access to education and health care for Amazon communities. Critics counter that such developments would fundamentally alter the character of Amazon life, potentially opening pristine areas to exploitation, while destroying the cultural adaptations that have allowed human communities to thrive sustainably in these environments for thousands of years. The debate reflects broader global tensions between development and conservation, between integration into global economic systems and preservation of alternative ways of life. Environmental scientists worry that improved road access could accelerate deforestation and fragment habitat that remains essential for maintaining the ecosystem services that the Amazon provides to the entire planet. Indigenous leaders express concerns about how infrastructure development might affect their territorial rights and traditional ways of life. Yet for now, the river remains the forest's highway, its tributaries the side streets of an aquatic city larger than most countries. This river-based transportation system operates according to principles that prioritize flexibility and adaptation over speed and efficiency, creating travel experiences that remain inherently contemplative and connected to natural rhythms. The scale of this river system defies easy comprehension. The Amazon and its tributaries contain approximately 20% of all the fresh water on Earth's surface, more than the next 7 largest river systems combined. During flood season, the river can be over 40 miles wide in some locations, while even in the dry season it remains navigable by large vessels for over 2,300 miles from its mouth. The Amazon basin contains approximately 30 million people scattered across its 6 million square kilometers, creating a population density of roughly 5 people per square kilometer. To put this in perspective, Sao Paulo has a population density of over 7,000 people per square kilometer, while rural areas of the Amazon often have fewer than 1 person per square kilometer. This sparse human population creates vast areas where the dominant sounds are those of the forest itself, rather than human activity. This low population density creates a different relationship with solitude and silence than exists in most parts of the modern world. Here, quiet is not empty but fulfilled with the whisper of leaves responding to breezes, the distant calls of birds announcing territorial boundaries or advertising for mates, the gentle patter of rain that might fall for hours without interruption, creating percussion sections that span thousands of square miles. The silence here is active and alive, pregnant with possibility and mystery, charged with the constant communication between countless organisms going about the business of survival, reproduction, and community maintenance. Learning to listen to this silence becomes a form of meditation, a way of tuning into frequencies of life that operate below the threshold of casual human attention. Rivers serve as the primary highways in this vast region, their brown waters carrying everything from trade goods to school children, from medical supplies to wedding parties. River taxis follow routes as regular as city buses, their captains reading the water like others read street signs, navigating by landmarks that change seasonally but remain recognizable to experienced eyes. These river taxis represent crucial infrastructure for communities scattered along thousands of miles of waterways, providing connections that make education, healthcare, and commerce possible for people living in areas that would otherwise be completely isolated. The boats are designed specifically for Amazon conditions, with shallow drafts that allow navigation in areas where water levels fluctuate dramatically between seasons. During the wet season, when the rivers rise dramatically, the forest floor becomes submerged and rivers and streams merge into vast aquatic mazes where fish swim among the treetops and dolphins hunt in the shadows of the canopy. This annual transformation creates entirely different navigation challenges and opportunities, as boats can take shortcuts through flooded forests that are impossible during low water periods. The floating communities that dot these waterways represent humanity's remarkable ability to adapt and thrive in harmony with natural cycles that might seem challenging or impossible to those accustomed to more stable environments. These communities have developed social, economic, and technological systems that not only accommodate but actually benefit from the dramatic seasonal changes that characterize life in the Amazon basin. Houses in these communities are built on platforms that rise and fall with the water level, their design reflecting generations of accumulated wisdom about how to create comfortable, durable living spaces that work with rather than against the river's seasonal moods. Gardens are planted in floating containers that adjust automatically to changing water levels, while livestock is kept on platforms that function like arks during flood seasons. Children in these communities develop swimming skills that would impress Olympic athletes, their comfort in the water reflecting lives lived in intimate connection with aquatic environments. Their games often involve diving for objects, racing between floating platforms, or competitions that test their ability to read water conditions and predict weather changes. Education in these communities often takes place in floating schools that can move between communities as needed, their schedules coordinated with seasonal patterns rather than rigid academic calendars. Teachers who work in these schools develop remarkable skills for conducting lessons while accommodating the constant motion of floating classrooms, turning the challenges of river life into opportunities for experiential learning about physics, biology, and environmental science. Healthcare delivery in river communities requires similar adaptations, with medical professionals traveling by boat between settlements and conducting clinics in floating facilities designed to handle everything from routine checkups to emergency procedures. These medical boats often serve as lifelines for communities that might be days or weeks away from the nearest hospital by conventional transportation. In the distance, thunder rumbles across the water, not threatening but promising, carrying the potential for rain that will refresh the forest and fill the streams that feed the great river system. Thunder in the Amazon often begins as a distant whisper that gradually builds into a spectacular percussion performance, with lightning illuminating the vast sky and rain falling in sheets that can be seen approaching across miles of water and forest. Rain in the Amazon differs qualitatively from precipitation in other climates: warmer, gentler, more musical as it strikes the countless surfaces of the forest canopy. Each drop becomes part of an enormous percussion section, creating rhythms that change with the intensity of the storm and the density of the vegetation through which it falls. During heavy rains, the forest becomes a living musical instrument, with different tree species producing different tones and rhythms as water strikes their leaves. Cecropia trees create a lighter, more rapid percussion, while the broad leaves of tropical hardwoods produce deeper, more resonant tones. The overall effect is of an orchestra composed of millions of instruments, each one contributing to a composition that changes continuously but maintains harmonic coherence. The air during and after rainstorms carries a distinctive fragrance that scientists call petrichor, the sweet, earthy smell produced when rain contacts dry soil and vegetation. In the Amazon, this scent becomes particularly complex and intoxicating, as the rain releases volatile compounds from thousands of different plant species, creating aromatic bouquets that change with the seasons and the specific plant communities present in different areas. As evening approaches and our imaginary journey through the Amazon's geography continues, the forest begins its transformation from the relatively quiet world of daylight to the incredibly active soundscape of tropical night. This transition happens gradually, with different species becoming active at different times, creating a succession of acoustic environments that flow into each other like movements in a vast symphony. Somewhere in the canopy far above, a three-toed sloth begins its nightly journey from one feeding tree to another, its movements so gradual that algae grows in its fur, providing camouflage that makes it nearly invisible among the leaves. This remarkable symbiosis between mammal and plant represents just one of countless examples of the intricate relationships that have evolved in ecosystems, where species have had millions of years to develop intimate partnerships. Below, on the forest floor, army ants begin their nightly march across territories that may span several square miles, their columns stretching for hundreds of meters as they hunt for insects, spiders, and other small creatures. These ants don't build permanent nests but create temporary bivouacs using their own bodies, forming living structures that expand and contract based on the colony's needs and the opportunities available in their current hunting grounds. The precision of army ant movements reflects a collective intelligence that emerges from the interactions of hundreds of thousands of individual insects, each one following simple rules that somehow combine to create complex, adaptive behaviors at the colony level. Scientists studying these ants have gained insights into swarm intelligence, distributed decision-making, and self-organizing systems that have applications in fields ranging from robotics to urban planning. Other species have learned to take advantage of army ant hunting activities, creating mobile ecosystems that follow the ant columns. Specialized birds called antbirds feed on insects flushed out by the ant's advance, while certain butterfly species follow ant swarms to feed on the droppings of birds that are following the ants, creating chains of ecological relationship that span multiple taxonomic groups. The air here carries scents that change continuously as different plants release chemical signals in response to temperature changes, humidity fluctuations, and the activities of herbivorous insects. Many tropical plants produce their strongest fragrances at night, when their moth pollinators are most active, creating an olfactory landscape that shifts as dramatically as the visual landscape transformed by sunrise and sunset. This is the Amazon's gift to those who take time to receive it: an education in patience, adaptation, and the profound interconnectedness that characterizes healthy ecosystems. Every sight, sound, and smell tells stories of relationships that have been refined through millions of years of coevolution, creating a living laboratory where the principles of sustainable existence can be observed in action. Listen now to the evening chorus beginning around you, as day transitions to night in the world's most biodiverse ecosystem. Somewhere high above, a toucan calls its distinctive double note, the sound carrying clearly through the forest despite the dense vegetation that would muffle most other noises. These calls serve to maintain contact between mated pairs and to announce territorial boundaries to other toucans in the area. The toucan's large, colorful beak, which might seem awkwardly oversized to human eyes, actually represents a marvel of evolutionary engineering. The beak size allows the bird to reach fruits on branches too thin to support its body weight, while its bright colors provide visual signals that help toucans recognize their own species in the dim light of the forest understory. In the understory below, a family of squirrel monkeys settles in for the night, their social calls growing quieter as they arrange themselves for sleep. These highly social primates live in groups that can include over 100 individuals. Their complex social relationships requiring constant communication and negotiation that continues even as they prepare for rest. From somewhere in the forest's depths comes the deep, resonant call of a jaguar, a sound that carries for miles through the trees and speaks of power, held in perfect balance with the wisdom that comes from being perfectly adapted to one's environment. Jaguars are solitary hunters whose territories can span over 100 square kilometers, requiring them to travel vast distances through forest that provides both opportunities and challenges for a large predator. These magnificent cats are equally comfortable hunting on the ground, in trees, or in water, making them perhaps the most versatile large predators in the Americas. Their powerful jaws can crack turtle shells and caiman skulls, yet they move through the forest with silence that would be impossible for any human, their padded feet leaving no trace of their passage on the soft forest floor. The Amazon River continues its eternal flow toward the sea, carrying with it not just water but the dissolved minerals, organic matter, and nutrients that will eventually feed ocean ecosystems thousands of miles away. This river connects mountain and sea, forest and ocean, in cycles that operate on timescales that dwarf human history, but include human participation in every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of awareness that connects individual consciousness to planetary systems. The river's flow varies dramatically between seasons, with discharge rates that can change by a factor of 10 between dry and wet periods. During peak flood season, the Amazon discharges enough water to supply the needs of New York City for over 9 years, while even during the lowest water periods, it carries more water than most other major rivers do at their peak flows. This massive water movement drives weather patterns across South America and beyond, with moisture evaporated from the Amazon basin, contributing to rainfall in regions as distant as the southern United States and northern Argentina. The forest and river function as a single hydrological system that regulates precipitation across an area spanning multiple countries and climate zones. Feel yourself drifting now with this great current, not just the physical current of the river, but the deeper currents of life that connect all living beings in networks of relationship and interdependence that span scales from the molecular to the planetary. Your breathing synchronizes with the transpiration of trees. Your heartbeat matches the pulse of nutrients flowing through fungal networks. Your awareness expands to encompass systems of beauty and complexity that humble human understanding, while inspiring profound gratitude for the privilege of participation in such magnificent arrangements of matter and energy. The forest watches over you with the patience of geological time, its ancient wisdom available to anyone willing to slow down enough to receive its teachings. Here, surrounded by more life than exists anywhere else on Earth, you can discover forms of wealth that cannot be counted in money, types of success that cannot be measured in conventional terms, and qualities of beauty that exist independent of human opinion or evaluation. This is the Amazon's most precious gift, not just biological diversity, but cognitive diversity, alternative ways of understanding time and relationship, success and beauty, progress and wisdom. In learning to perceive the forest's rhythms, you discover rhythms within yourself that connect you to cycles larger than individual lifespans, older than human civilization, more stable than any human institution. Drift deeper into the forest's embrace, where every leaf whispers stories of resilience and adaptation, where every shadow promises mysteries yet to be discovered, where the rhythm of your breathing becomes indistinguishable from the rhythm of the forest's own respiration, and where sleep comes not as escape from the world, but as deeper participation in the ongoing dream of life itself, creating forms of beauty and complexity that surpass any human imagination of great rivers, where waters from different tributaries meet and mingle, creating swirling patterns on the surface like liquid marble. You are approaching Manaus, a city of 2 million souls that sits like a jewel in the crown of the Amazon basin, surrounded by an ocean of green that stretches to every horizon. Manaus exists in splendid isolation, accessible by river and air but connected to the outside world by no paved roads. Highway 319, which theoretically connects the city to the rest of Brazil, remains unpaved for much of its length, turning to mud during the rainy season and dust during the dry months. This isolation is not a barrier but a blessing, keeping the rhythm of life here synchronized with the pulse of the forest itself. The Amazon River here is so wide that standing on one bank, the other side fades into the misty distance like the shore of an inland sea. Local pilots navigate by instinct and experience, reading the subtle signs of current and weather that have guided river travelers for generations. There are no bridges across the Amazon River, no concrete spans interrupting its flow. Instead, ferries carry vehicles and people across these chocolate-colored waters, their journey a meditation on patience and trust. Picture the meeting of waters, where the dark Rio Negro encounters the sandy-colored Amazon River. For several miles, these two great streams flow side by side without mixing, creating a natural boundary as distinct as a line drawn on a map. The Rio Negro's water is warmer and moves more slowly, while the Amazon River runs cooler and faster. Eventually, like old friends finding common ground, the waters blend into one magnificent flow. From Manaus, the forest extends in every direction as far as the eye can see and far beyond. Flying over this canopy, you would see an unbroken carpet of green punctuated only occasionally by the silver thread of a river or the small brown square of a clearing. This is one of the last places on Earth where you can travel for hours and see no sign of human presence, where the horizon promises mystery rather than familiarity. The city of Iquitos in Peru shares this splendid isolation. With 500,000 inhabitants, it stands as the largest city in the world inaccessible by road. From Iquitos, a single 100-kilometer highway stretches to the village of Nauta before ending abruptly at the forest's edge, like a sentence left unfinished. Everything that arrives in Iquitos comes by river or air, maintaining the city's connection to the ancient rhythms of Amazonian life. The river here is everything: highway, marketplace, source of food and water, playground for children, and pathway to adventure. Floating gas stations drift with the current, their owners living aboard for months at a time. Floating grocery stores bob at anchor near riverside communities, their shelves stocked with everything from fresh fish to batteries, their presence a reminder of human ingenuity and adaptation. Imagine gliding past these floating establishments in the golden light of late afternoon. The water reflects the sky like a mirror, disturbed only by the gentle wake of your passage. Children wave from the banks, their laughter carrying across the water. Women wash clothes at the river's edge, their movements rhythmic and unhurried. This is life lived in harmony with the forest's tempo, where the river's rise and fall determines the rhythm of seasons more than any calendar. In 2025, government officials still debate plans to pave Highway 319 and build the first bridge across the Amazon River near Manaus. These projects spark passionate discussions about progress and preservation, about connection and isolation. Yet for now, the river remains the forest's highway, its tributaries the side streets of an aquatic city larger than most countries. The Amazon basin contains approximately 30 million people scattered across its 6 million square kilometers, a population density of roughly 5 people per square kilometer. Compare this to Sao Paulo, with its 7,000 people per square kilometer, and you begin to understand the profound quietude that characterizes daily life here. In many areas of the deep Amazon, you could walk for days without encountering another human being, hearing only the sounds of the forest itself. This vastness creates a different relationship with solitude and silence. Here, quiet is not empty but filled with the whisper of leaves, the distant call of birds, the gentle patter of rain that might fall for hours without interruption. The silence here is active and alive, pregnant with possibility and mystery. Rivers serve as the primary highways, their brown waters carrying everything from trade goods to school children. River taxis follow routes as regular as city buses, their captains reading the water like others read street signs. During the wet season, these rivers rise dramatically, flooding the forest floor and creating a vast aquatic maze where fish swim among the treetops and dolphins hunt in the shadows of the canopy. The floating communities that dot these waterways represent humanity's ability to adapt and thrive in harmony with natural cycles. Houses built on stilts rise and fall with the water level, their gardens planted in floating boxes, their livestock grazing on platforms that bob gently with the current. Children learn to swim before they walk, and families measure time not by clocks but by the river's moods. In the distance, thunder rumbles across the water, not threatening but promising. Rain in the Amazon is different from rain elsewhere, warmer, gentler, more musical as it strikes the countless leaves of the canopy. Each drop becomes part of an enormous percussion section, creating rhythms that change with the intensity of the storm and the density of the forest. As evening approaches, the forest comes alive with new sounds. Somewhere in the canopy, a three-toed sloth moves with deliberate slowness from branch to branch, its movements so gradual that algae grows on its fur, providing camouflage in the green world above. Below, army ants march in perfect formation across the forest floor, their columns stretching for hundreds of meters, a river of insects flowing around obstacles with the persistence of water itself. The air here carries scents unknown in other places: the green smell of growing things, the rich earthiness of decomposing leaves, the sweet perfume of night-blooming flowers, and the faint muskiness of animals hidden in the shadows. This is the perfume of life itself, complex and ever-changing, an aromatic symphony that tells the story of the forest's endless cycles of growth and renewal. Listen now to the evening chorus beginning around you. Somewhere high above, a toucan settles onto its roost, its colorful beak tucked beneath its wing. In the understory, a family of squirrel monkeys chatters as they prepare for sleep, their voices like children playing in a distant playground. From the forest floor comes the deep, resonant call of a jaguar, a sound that carries for miles through the trees and speaks of power held in perfect balance. The Amazon River continues its eternal flow toward the sea, carrying with it the memories of mountains and the dreams of the ocean. Its waters have traveled thousands of miles from their source in the Andes, gathering the stories of countless tributaries along the way. By the time it reaches the Atlantic, this river will have drained water from an area larger than Australia, its mouth so wide that from the middle you cannot see either shore. Feel yourself drifting now with this great current, your worries dissolved in its flow, your tensions carried away toward the sea. The river knows where it's going, has always known, and you can trust it to carry you safely through the green maze of your dreams. The forest watches over you with the patience of centuries, its ancient wisdom a blanket against the night. Drift deeper into the forest, where the leaves whisper a lullaby composed of wind and time, where every shadow holds the promise of wonder, where the rhythm of your breathing synchronizes with the heartbeat of the world's largest rainforest. Here, in this vast and silent world, you are home, the symphony of life. The Amazon's biodiversity breathe deeply, and let your awareness expand to encompass the incredible symphony of life that surrounds you in every direction. The Amazon rainforest is home to one in every 10 known species on our planet, a biological orchestra so complex and beautiful that scientists estimate we have yet to discover even half of its members. In this single forest ecosystem, more than 2.5 million species of insects go about their daily business, many no larger than a pinhead, others with wingspans broader than dinner plates. Each one represents a unique solution to the challenges of survival in tropical environments, from the iridescent blue morpho butterflies, whose wings create optical illusions that confuse predators, to the leafcutter ants whose agricultural practices rival human farming in their sophistication and sustainability. The morpho butterfly's wings contain no blue pigment whatsoever, instead creating their stunning azure appearance through microscopic structures that interfere with light waves, reflecting only blue wavelengths while absorbing all others. This structural coloration represents a technology that human engineers are only beginning to understand and replicate, offering insights into creating colors and optical effects without chemical dyes or pigments. Tens of thousands of plant species reach toward the scattered sunlight that filters through the multilayered canopy, from tiny mosses that carpet the forest floor in emerald velvet to massive Brazil nut trees that tower 200 feet above the canopy, their trunks so wide that 20 people holding hands could barely encircle them. These ancient giants can live for over 500 years, their lives spanning the rise and fall of civilizations, their growth rings recording climate variations across centuries. The Brazil nut tree's life cycle illustrates the intricate connections that characterize Amazon ecosystems. These trees can only reproduce through a complex chain of relationships involving specific bee species that are strong enough to force open the tree's tightly closed flowers, and agoutis whose powerful jaws are the only tools capable of cracking open the extremely hard seed pods. Without both bees and agoutis, Brazil nut trees cannot reproduce, making their survival dependent on maintaining the entire ecosystem rather than just protecting individual trees. Among the branches and in the waters, nearly 2,000 species of birds and mammals make their homes, their diversity reflecting millions of years of evolution in stable tropical environments that have allowed specialization to reach extraordinary levels. Some hummingbirds have bills curved to match exactly the shape of specific flowers, while certain bat species have evolved echolocation calls tuned to detect the wing beats of specific moth species they hunt. The rivers and streams teem with 1/5 of all the fish species on Earth, their diversity so great that many tributaries contain more fish species than entire temperate river systems. Some Amazon fish have evolved to feed exclusively on fruits that fall from trees during flood season, while others have developed the ability to breathe air, allowing them to survive in oxygen-poor waters or even travel short distances over land during dry periods. This abundance seems almost impossible to comprehend, yet every square meter of forest floor, every branch in the canopy, every cubic meter of river water pulses with life in forms both familiar and fantastical. The sheer number of species creates opportunities for ecological relationships of stunning complexity, with many organisms depending on chains of interaction that include dozens of other species. Close your eyes and picture a world where evolution has been experimenting with forms and colors, behaviors and adaptations, for 60 million years without major disruption. Here lives the poison dart frog, no bigger than your thumb, its skin colored electric blue with black spots like scattered stars against a night sky. Despite its tiny size, this little creature carries enough toxin in its skin to defend itself against any predator, its bright colors serving as a warning written in the universal language of survival. Indigenous peoples have used these frogs' toxins for hunting arrows for thousands of years, extracting the compounds through careful processes that concentrate the active chemicals while avoiding contamination of the meat they hunt. This represents sophisticated knowledge of biochemistry that allows subsistence hunters to take large game using relatively simple tools, demonstrating how traditional knowledge systems can achieve remarkable effectiveness through deep understanding of ecological relationships. The frogs themselves obtain their toxicity from their diet, concentrating alkaloids from the ants and other insects they consume. In captivity, fed different foods, these same frogs become completely harmless, illustrating how toxicity represents not an inherent characteristic, but a product of ecological relationships that connect the frog to the entire food web of which it is part. In the rivers, the pink river dolphin surfaces with grace that seems almost supernatural, its intelligence evident in dark eyes that seem to hold ancient wisdom accumulated through millions of years of aquatic evolution. Local legends say these dolphins are shapeshifters, able to take human form and walk among us during festivals and celebrations, and watching them navigate the complex underwater topography of flooded forests, it's easy to believe such stories of transformation and magic. These dolphins have adapted to life in brown water, where visibility is measured in inches rather than feet, developing echolocation abilities so sophisticated they can distinguish between different types of fish by the acoustic signatures of their swim bladders, navigate through flooded forests by reading the sonic reflections from submerged trees, and locate specific individuals in their social groups across miles of murky water. During flood season, when the forest floor becomes submerged under 20 or 30 feet of water, river dolphins swim through areas that are terrestrial habitat during the dry season, hunting fish that have dispersed into the temporarily aquatic forest. This seasonal transformation creates opportunities for dolphins to access food sources unavailable during low water periods, while also allowing them to escape from predators and competitors that cannot follow them into shallow, obstacle-filled flooded forests. High in the canopy, three-toed sloths move with such deliberate slowness that their fur becomes a garden, hosting algae that turns them green and provides perfect camouflage among the leaves, while moths live symbiotically in their fur, and beetles make homes in the folds of their skin. Their movements are so gradual that watching one travel from branch to branch requires the patience of a meditation practice. Yet this slowness is not laziness but wisdom, a way of living that conserves energy and avoids detection by predators in an environment where rapid movement often signals danger. Sloths descend from their trees only once a week to defecate, a behavior that seems to serve no obvious purpose since they could easily eliminate waste from the canopy without the risks involved in ground travel. Scientists have discovered that this weekly journey is actually part of a complex ecological relationship involving the moths that live in sloth fur, the algae that grows on their bodies, and the trees that provide their food and shelter. When sloths descend to defecate, the moths in their fur lay eggs in the dung, which provides food for moth larvae. Adult moths that emerge from these dung piles seek out sloths and take up residence in their fur, bringing with them nitrogen compounds that fertilize the algae growing on the sloth's body. This algae provides supplemental nutrition for the sloth, while also improving its camouflage, creating a three-way partnership that benefits all participants. The harpy eagle, one of the most powerful birds of prey in the world, nests in the forest's tallest trees, building platforms that can be used by multiple generations over decades. With talons larger than grizzly bear claws and eyesight 8 times sharper than human vision, this magnificent hunter can spot a sloth from 2 miles away. Yet despite its fearsome capabilities, the harpy eagle has become a symbol of the forest's need for protection, its numbers declining as its habitat shrinks and fragments. Harpy eagles require vast territories to find sufficient prey, with nesting pairs needing hunting areas of 25 to 50 square kilometers of intact forest. Their preference for sloths, monkeys, and other arboreal mammals makes them particularly vulnerable to forest fragmentation, as these prey species cannot survive in small forest patches or degraded habitats. The eagle's hunting strategy involves incredible patience, with individuals capable of waiting motionless for hours until prey moves within range. Their flight through the dense forest canopy requires extraordinary maneuverability, as they navigate between branches and vines while carrying prey that may weigh nearly as much as they do. In recent years, the forest has revealed some of its newest treasures to patient scientists working with increasingly sophisticated technology and growing respect for indigenous knowledge. In 2015, researchers working in collaboration with local communities discovered a new species of titi monkey in the Brazilian state of Mato Grosso, its distinctive red stripe across its face making it unmistakable among its relatives. This discovery reminded the scientific community that even relatively large, conspicuous animals can remain unknown to science when they live in remote areas that have received little research attention. The monkey had been known to local people for generations, but formal scientific description required years of careful observation to document its behavior, ecology, and genetic distinctiveness from related species. The red-striped titi monkey discovery also highlighted the importance of collaborative research that includes indigenous and local communities as partners, rather than subjects. The people who had lived alongside these monkeys for generations possessed detailed knowledge of their behavior, habitat preferences, and ecological relationships that proved essential for understanding the species' conservation needs and ecological role. The bald parrot, scientifically described in 1999, had somehow evaded formal scientific notice despite its distinctive appearance and loud calls that carry for miles through the forest. This discovery highlighted how much we still don't know about the forest's inhabitants. How many species might be living their entire life cycles unnoticed by formal science, while remaining well known to indigenous communities who interact with them regularly. The parrot's baldness is actually a specialized adaptation that may help with thermoregulation in the hot, humid conditions of the lower Amazon basin. The bare skin on its head and neck can flush with blood when the bird needs to release excess heat, functioning like a natural cooling system that supplements the behavioral adaptations parrots use to maintain optimal body temperature. Most remarkably, in 2024, scientists working in the northern Amazon confirmed the existence of a new species of green anaconda, potentially the largest snake species ever documented by science. These massive serpents, some reaching lengths of over 30 feet and weighing more than 500 pounds, move through the flooded forests and slow-moving rivers like living embodiments of ancient myths about great serpents that rule the waterways. The newly identified anaconda species appears to be genetically distinct from the common green anaconda, despite being virtually identical in appearance. This discovery was made possible by advances in genetic analysis that can detect differences invisible to traditional morphological studies, suggesting that many other known species may actually represent multiple distinct evolutionary lineages. These giant anacondas are perfectly adapted to aquatic life, with eyes and nostrils positioned on top of their heads to allow them to remain almost completely submerged while watching for prey. Their muscular bodies can exert crushing force sufficient to subdue caimans, capybaras, and even jaguars, making them apex predators in aquatic environments throughout their range. As we move deeper into 2025, new species continue to emerge from the forest's green depths like gifts from a generous friend who never runs out of surprises. Perhaps a fish with scales that catch light like scattered diamonds has been discovered in a remote tributary, or a flower that blooms only during the full moon has been documented releasing its ethereal fragrance into the night air, or a butterfly with wings that create musical tones when they flutter has been observed performing aerial courtship displays that combine visual and auditory beauty. Each new discovery adds another instrument to the forest's vast biological orchestra, another voice to its ongoing conversation about the possibilities inherent in life when given stable environments and sufficient time to explore the endless combinations of form and function that evolution makes possible. The Amazon continues to surprise us, reminding us that wonder is not a finite resource, but something that regenerates continuously in places where life is allowed to flourish without excessive human interference. The secret to this incredible abundance lies not in rich soil, as you might expect from such luxuriant vegetation, but in one of nature's most elegant recycling systems that operates on a planetary scale. The forest floor itself is surprisingly poor in nutrients, yet above it grows the most biodiverse ecosystem on Earth, sustained by biological and geochemical processes that connect South America to Africa in cycles that have operated for millions of years. The magic happens in the atmosphere, in a transcontinental partnership between desert and forest that demonstrates the interconnectedness of Earth's major ecosystems. Each year, approximately 28 million tons of dust from Africa's Sahara Desert travels across the Atlantic Ocean on trade winds, carrying with it 22,000 tons of phosphorus from the Badele Depression in Chad, an ancient lake bed that now serves as one of the planet's largest sources of mineral dust. Picture these microscopic particles of African earth beginning their journey in the windswept landscapes of Chad, where drought and seasonal weather patterns lift millions of tons of fine sediment into the upper atmosphere. These dust particles, each one containing trace amounts of phosphorus and other minerals essential for plant growth, rise into the jet stream and begin a journey that will carry them across the entire Atlantic Ocean. The trade winds that carry this dust westward represent part of the global atmospheric circulation system that connects all continents in exchanges of energy, moisture, and materials. These same winds that bring African dust to the Amazon also carry moisture evaporated from the forest back across the Atlantic, creating weather patterns that affect rainfall in Africa and completing cycles of exchange that operate on timescales much longer than human lifespans. As these dust particles settle gently onto the leaves of the Amazon canopy, they begin to dissolve in morning dew and rainwater, releasing their mineral content into the forest circulatory system. Trees capture these nutrients through their leaves and transport them through their vascular systems to roots, branches, and growing tissues, while excess minerals wash down trunk surfaces to enrich the soil around root systems. This aerial fertilization provides the Amazon with approximately the same amount of phosphorus that is lost annually through river transport to the Atlantic Ocean, creating a balanced budget that has sustained forest growth for millions of years. The dust also contains iron, calcium, and other trace elements essential for plant metabolism, arriving just when the forest needs them most during the peak growing season. The precise timing of dust arrival reflects the complex interactions between African weather patterns and Atlantic atmospheric circulation. Dust transport peaks during the Northern Hemisphere winter, when the Harmattan winds are strongest in West Africa, and the trade wind patterns are most favorable for transcontinental transport. This timing coincides with the Amazon's dry season, when reduced rainfall makes the additional nutrient input most valuable for forest productivity. Modern satellite technology allows scientists to track individual dust storms as they travel from Africa to South America, revealing the day-by-day movement of nutrients across thousands of miles of ocean. These observations have revolutionized understanding of how ecosystems separated by vast distances can be intimately connected through atmospheric transport processes that operate continuously, but largely invisibly. Trees in the Amazon have evolved sophisticated mechanisms for capturing and utilizing these aerial nutrients, with many species producing specialized structures on their leaves that are particularly effective at collecting and processing dust particles. Some trees can obtain up to 30% of their phosphorus requirements from atmospheric deposition, making them dependent on African dust storms for optimal growth and reproduction. The forest's response to variations in dust transport can be measured through changes in plant growth, fruit production, and overall ecosystem productivity. Years with reduced dust transport, often associated with changes in African rainfall patterns or Atlantic hurricane activity, result in measurable decreases in forest growth rates and biodiversity indices across large areas of the Amazon basin. This transcontinental fertilization system illustrates how the Amazon's incredible biological diversity depends not just on local conditions, but on planetary scale processes that connect it to ecosystems thousands of miles away. The forest's trees are literally made from African dust, their leaves constructed from minerals that began their journey in the heart of the Sahara Desert weeks or months before becoming part of Amazon vegetation. The nutrients arrive in the forest through processes that seem almost magical, microscopic particles traveling on invisible winds, settling on leaves like fairy dust, dissolving in dewdrops to feed the world's most diverse ecosystem. Yet this magic is actually sophisticated geochemistry and atmospheric physics, natural processes operating with precision that human technology can barely monitor, much less replicate. Understanding these nutrient cycles has transformed scientific appreciation for the Amazon's role in global systems, revealing how forest health depends on maintaining not just local ecological relationships, but planetary-scale circulation patterns that could be disrupted by climate change or large-scale environmental modifications in distant continents. The forest captures these nutrients and immediately begins circulating them through underground networks of fungal connections that link almost every plant in the forest in a vast communication and resource-sharing system that scientists call the Wood Wide Web. These fungal networks, composed of microscopic threads called mycorrhizae, form partnerships with tree roots that allow plants to share nutrients, water, and even chemical information across considerable distances. A single fungal network can connect hundreds of individual trees and thousands of smaller plants in resource-sharing relationships that ensure the entire forest community benefits when any member receives an influx of nutrients. When African dust settles on the leaves of an emergent giant, some of those minerals may end up nourishing understory seedlings dozens of meters away through these underground connections. These fungal networks also serve as communication systems, allowing plants to send chemical signals that warn neighbors about insect attacks, pathogen outbreaks, or environmental stresses. Trees under attack by leaf-feeding insects can send chemical messages through fungal networks that cause nearby trees to increase production of defensive compounds, creating neighborhood watch systems that operate entirely through chemical signaling. The sophistication of these plant communication networks has only become apparent through recent research, using isotopic tracers and molecular techniques that can track the movement of specific compounds through forest ecosystems. Scientists have discovered that trees can distinguish between related and unrelated neighbors, preferentially sharing resources with their offspring while competing more aggressively with unrelated individuals. When a tree dies and falls, creating one of the forest's dramatic light gaps, it releases its stored nutrients back into the system immediately through decomposition processes that operate with remarkable efficiency in the warm, humid environment. The fallen giant becomes a nurse log that supports the growth of countless other organisms, from fungi and bacteria to ferns and tree seedlings, creating vertical gardens that persist for decades as the log slowly decomposes. Decomposition in the Amazon happens so quickly that fallen leaves are broken down and recycled within weeks, rather than the months or years required in temperate climates. This rapid nutrient cycling ensures that minerals from African dust become available to plants almost immediately after arrival, while also preventing the accumulation of organic matter that characterizes soils in cooler, drier climates. Nothing is wasted in this system. Nothing is lost. The forest operates as a perfectly efficient organism where death immediately becomes life, where every ending is simultaneously a beginning, where nutrients cycle between soil and atmosphere, plant and animal, individual and ecosystem in patterns that have been refined over millions of years of evolution and adaptation. The sounds of this biological symphony change throughout the day like movements in a vast musical composition that spans multiple octaves and incorporates thousands of different instruments. Dawn brings the haunting calls of the tinamou birds, ground-dwelling relatives of the ostrich whose whistles echo through the mist-shrouded understory like flutes played by invisible musicians hidden in the green shadows. Tinamous are masters of acoustic camouflage, their calls designed to travel long distances through dense vegetation while revealing nothing about the caller's precise location. Their vocalizations demonstrate sophisticated understanding of acoustic ecology, with different species using different frequencies and temporal patterns to avoid interference with each other's communications. As the sun climbs higher and begins to penetrate the forest canopy, parrots fill the air with raucous conversations that can be heard for miles, their bright colors flashing between the leaves like living jewels tossed by invisible hands. These social birds maintain complex flock relationships that require constant vocal communication, with individuals using distinct call signatures that allow flock members to recognize each other, even in dense vegetation where visual contact is impossible. Parrot vocalizations include not just species-specific calls, but also learned sounds that are passed down through social groups like cultural traditions. Young parrots learn their vocal repertoires from adults, sometimes acquiring local dialects that vary between different geographic regions or social groups within the same species. The midday forest grows relatively quieter, as animals retreat to shaded spots to wait out the intense heat and humidity that characterize tropical afternoons. This is when you might notice subtler sounds that are masked during periods of higher animal activity, the rustle of an iguana moving through the leaf litter with movements so slow and deliberate they seem almost meditative, the distant splash of a giant river otter diving for fish in a quiet backwater, or the almost musical dripping of water from leaf to leaf as the forest processes moisture from the previous night's rain. Iguanas represent another example of the Amazon's capacity for producing creatures that seem designed by someone with an unlimited imagination and a fondness for prehistoric aesthetics. These large lizards can grow to over 6 feet in length and live for decades, developing territorial behaviors and social hierarchies that are surprisingly complex for reptiles. During the dry season, iguanas congregate around remaining water sources, creating temporary communities that demonstrate their ability to recognize individual neighbors and maintain peaceful coexistence despite their formidable appearance. Males during breeding season develop bright orange coloration and engage in elaborate displays that combine visual signals with chemical communication through specialized scent glands. As afternoon fades to evening, new performers join the forest's acoustic ensemble in a transition that happens gradually but dramatically, like a symphony orchestra tuning up before a concert. Somewhere in the distance, a family of howler monkeys begins their territorial calls, voices that carry for miles through the forest in sounds that seem to come from the depths of the earth itself. Bass notes so deep and resonant they can be felt as much as heard. Howler monkey calls rank among the loudest vocalizations in the animal kingdom, audible from 3 miles away, even in dense forest, where most sounds are quickly absorbed by vegetation. These calls serve multiple functions, establishing territorial boundaries, maintaining contact between group members, and advertising the caller's size and fitness to potential competitors or mates. The monkey's enlarged throat structures, called hyoid bones, function like natural amplifiers that allow relatively small animals to produce sounds comparable in volume to those made by much larger creatures. This acoustic amplification allows howler troops to avoid direct confrontations by advertising their presence and territorial claims from safe distances. Yet despite their volume, there's something almost musical about howler vocalizations, particularly when multiple troops call simultaneously from different areas of the forest. The overlapping calls create complex harmonic structures that seem to follow musical principles, with individual groups adjusting their timing and frequency to avoid masking each other's communications. Night in the Amazon brings an entirely different symphony, one dominated by creatures that have evolved to thrive in darkness and navigate by sound rather than sight. Bats emerge from their roosts in vast clouds, their echolocation clicks creating percussion sections audible to those who listen carefully, like rain on leaves or popcorn popping in the distance. The Amazon hosts over 150 bat species, making it one of the most bat-diverse regions on Earth. These flying mammals have evolved to exploit virtually every available ecological niche, from tiny insectivores that can catch mosquitoes in complete darkness, to fruit bats with wingspans approaching 4 feet that serve as crucial pollinators and seed dispersers for forest plants. Vampire bats, perhaps the most notorious of Amazon bats, represent remarkable examples of evolutionary specialization, having developed anticoagulant saliva that prevents blood from clotting while they feed. Despite their fearsome reputation, vampire bats rarely take enough blood to harm their hosts, and their feeding behavior has evolved to be as non-intrusive as possible to avoid waking sleeping animals. The echolocation calls of different bat species occupy different acoustic frequencies, allowing dozens of species to hunt simultaneously in the same airspace without interfering with each other's sonar systems. Some species have evolved to detect the echolocation calls of other bats and follow them to productive hunting areas, creating aerial networks of information sharing that help optimize foraging efficiency across the entire bat community. Frogs begin their evening chorus as darkness falls, each species contributing its own distinctive voice to a composition that includes hundreds of performers spread across multiple square miles of forest. Some chirp like tiny electronic devices, others croak like wooden blocks tapped together in complex rhythms. Still others produce sounds like miniature engines starting up in the distance or wind chimes made from pieces of different metals. The diversity of frog vocalizations in the Amazon surpasses that found in any other ecosystem, with some areas hosting over 100 species in relatively small areas. Each species has evolved calls that avoid acoustic interference with their neighbors, while also providing specific information about the caller's identity, location, size, and reproductive status. Tree frogs have developed some of the most sophisticated acoustic communication systems in the animal kingdom, with calls that include not just basic advertisement signals, but also aggressive calls used in territorial disputes, courtship calls used during mating interactions, and even duets performed by mated pairs to maintain pair bonds. The timing of frog choruses reflects complex interactions between weather conditions, lunar cycles, and breeding seasons, with different species becoming vocal at different times throughout the night and different seasons throughout the year. The result is an ever-changing acoustic landscape that provides a natural soundtrack to Amazon nights. The forest's nocturnal soundscape also includes the calls of night birds, from the haunting hoots of various owl species to the more unusual vocalizations of nightjars, patus, and other birds that have adapted to hunting and navigating in complete darkness. These birds have evolved extraordinary hearing and sound production abilities that allow them to locate prey, avoid obstacles, and communicate with mates in environments where vision provides little useful information. Patus, in particular, produce some of the most otherworldly sounds in the Amazon, with calls that range from mournful wails to mechanical-sounding clicks and buzzes. These sounds seem to embody the mystery and magic that characterizes the Amazon night, when familiar landscapes become alien territories populated by creatures whose lives unfold according to rhythms completely different from those that govern diurnal activities. In this single forest, more than 2.5 million species of insects go about their daily business, many no larger than a pinhead, others with wingspans broader than dinner plates. Tens of thousands of plant species reach toward the scattered sunlight, from tiny mosses that carpet the forest floor to massive Brazil nut trees that tower 200 feet above the canopy, their trunks so wide that 20 people holding hands could barely encircle them. Among the branches and in the waters, nearly 2,000 species of birds and mammals make their homes, while the rivers and streams teem with 1/5 of all the fish species on Earth. This abundance seems almost impossible, yet every square meter of forest floor, every branch in the canopy, every cubic meter of river water pulses with life in forms both familiar and fantastical. Close your eyes and picture a world where evolution has been painting with the most vibrant palette imaginable for millions of years. Here lives the poison dart frog, no bigger than your thumb, its skin colored electric blue with black spots like scattered stars. Despite its tiny size, this little creature carries enough toxin to defend itself against any predator, its bright colors a warning written in the universal language of survival. In the rivers, the pink river dolphin surfaces with grace that seems almost supernatural, its intelligence evident in dark eyes that seem to hold ancient wisdom. Local legends say these dolphins are shapeshifters, able to take human form and walk among us during festivals, and watching them glide through the dark water, It's easy to believe such stories. They navigate the flooded forests during high water, swimming between the trees like spirits moving through a liquid cathedral. High in the canopy, three-toed sloths move with such deliberate slowness that their fur becomes a garden, hosting algae that turns them green and provides perfect camouflage among the leaves. Moths live symbiotically in their fur, and their movements are so gradual that watching one travel from branch to branch requires the patience of a meditation practice. Yet this slowness is not laziness but wisdom, a way of living that conserves energy and avoids detection by predators. The harpy eagle, one of the most powerful birds of prey in the world, nests in the forest's tallest trees. With talons larger than grizzly bear claws and eyesight 8 times sharper than human vision, this magnificent hunter can spot a sloth from 2 miles away. Yet despite its fearsome capabilities, the harpy eagle has become a symbol of the forest's need for protection, its numbers declining as its habitat shrinks. In recent years, the forest has revealed some of its newest treasures to patient scientists. In 2015, researchers discovered a new species of monkey, its red-striped face making it unmistakable among its relatives. The discovery reminded us that even relatively large animals can remain hidden in the Amazon's green embrace, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. The bald parrot, found in 1999, had somehow evaded scientific notice despite its distinctive appearance and loud calls. This discovery highlighted how much we still don't know about the forest's inhabitants, how many species might be living their entire life cycles unnoticed by human science. Most remarkably, in 2024, scientists confirmed the existence of a new species of green anaconda, potentially the largest snake species ever documented. These massive serpents, some reaching lengths of over 30 feet and weighing more than 500 pounds, move through the flooded forests like living rivers themselves, their power hidden beneath the surface, until the moment they choose to reveal it. As we move into 2025, new species continue to emerge from the forest's green depths like gifts from a generous friend. Perhaps a fish with scales that catch light like scattered diamonds, or a flower that blooms only during the full moon, its petals glowing pale in the silvery light. The Amazon continues to surprise us, reminding us that wonder is not a finite resource, but something that regenerates continuously in places where life is allowed to flourish. The secret to this incredible abundance lies not in rich soil, as you might expect, but in one of nature's most elegant recycling systems. The forest floor itself is surprisingly poor in nutrients, yet above it grows the most biodiverse ecosystem on Earth. The magic happens in the air, in a transcontinental partnership between desert and forest that has been operating for millions of years. Each year, approximately 28 million tons of dust from Africa's Sahara Desert travels across the Atlantic Ocean on trade winds, carrying with it 22,000 tons of phosphorus from the Badele Depression in Chad. This ancient lake bed, now dried and windswept, provides the Amazon with the mineral nutrients it needs to sustain its incredible diversity. It's as if the Earth itself orchestrates this aerial fertilization, connecting two seemingly separate ecosystems in a dance of mutual support. Picture these microscopic particles of African dust settling gently onto the leaves of the canopy, where they dissolve in the morning dew and begin their journey into the forest's circulatory system. Trees capture these nutrients through their leaves and roots, then share them through an underground network of fungal connections that links almost every plant in the forest in a vast communication system scientists call the Wood Wide Web. When a tree dies and falls, creating one of the forest's dramatic light gaps, it releases its stored nutrients back into the system immediately. Decomposition happens so quickly in the warm, humid environment that fallen leaves are broken down and recycled within weeks. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is lost. The forest operates as a perfectly efficient organism where death immediately becomes life, where every ending is simultaneously a beginning. The sounds of this biological symphony change throughout the day like movements in a vast musical composition. Dawn brings the haunting calls of the tinamou birds, their whistles echoing through the mist-shrouded understory. As the sun climbs higher, parrots fill the air with raucous conversations, their bright colors flashing between the leaves like living jewels tossed by an invisible hand. The midday forest grows quieter, as animals retreat to shaded spots to wait out the heat. This is when you might notice subtler sounds: the rustle of an iguana moving through the leaf litter, the distant splash of a river otter diving for fish, or the almost musical dripping of water from leaf to leaf as the forest processes the moisture from the previous night's rain. As afternoon fades to evening, new performers join the orchestra. Somewhere in the distance, a family of howler monkeys begins their territorial calls, their voices carrying for miles through the forest in a sound that seems to come from the depths of the earth itself. These calls, among the loudest vocalizations in the animal kingdom, can be heard from 3 miles away, yet there's something almost musical about their resonance, like bass notes in a cathedral organ. Night in the Amazon brings an entirely different symphony. Bats emerge from their roosts in vast clouds. Their echolocation clicks, creating a percussion section audible to those who listen carefully. Frogs begin their evening chorus, each species contributing its own note to the composition, some chirping like birds, others croaking like old doors, still others producing sounds like tiny bells or wooden blocks tapped together in rhythm. The jaguar, lord of the forest, moves through this acoustic landscape like a ghost. Its spotted coat provides perfect camouflage in the dappled light that filters through the canopy, and its padded feet make no sound on the forest floor. Jaguars are excellent swimmers and equally comfortable in trees, making them perfectly adapted to the Amazon's seasonally flooded forests. Their powerful jaws can crush turtle shells and caiman skulls, yet they move with the grace of dancers, their presence more often sensed than seen. In the rivers, the prehistoric-looking spectacled caiman floats motionless as a log, only its eyes and nostrils visible above the surface. These ancient predators have survived virtually unchanged for millions of years, their patience legendary among river dwellers. They can remain perfectly still for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, then explode into motion faster than the eye can follow. The forest's plant life displays innovations that seem almost science-fictional in their ingenuity. Strangler figs begin life in the canopy, their seeds deposited in the forks of branches by birds. As they grow, they send roots down to the forest floor while simultaneously growing upward toward the light. Eventually, the fig's roots encircle and gradually strangle its host tree, leaving a hollow fig tree standing like a natural sculpture. Bromeliads, relatives of the pineapple, grow on tree branches and collect rainwater in their cup-shaped centers, creating aerial ponds that support entire miniature ecosystems. Frogs lay their eggs in these elevated pools, insects develop in their waters, and birds drink from them like natural fountains suspended in the air. The cecropia tree has evolved one of the forest's most elegant partnerships with insects. The tree provides hollow stems where Azteca ants make their homes, and in return, the ants aggressively defend their host from any herbivorous insects that might try to eat its leaves. The tree even produces special oil-rich packets at the base of its leaves specifically to feed its ant protectors, an example of cooperation so sophisticated it seems almost planned. Lianas, the forest's climbing vines, begin their lives on the dark forest floor and grow toward the light with single-minded determination. Some species can live for centuries, growing as thick as trees themselves as they weave through the canopy, connecting trees in a network of living cables. During the dry season, many trees drop their leaves to conserve water, but the lianas keep theirs, creating leafy highways that allow monkeys and other arboreal animals to travel through the forest without ever touching the ground. The forest floor itself teems with recyclers and decomposers working around the clock to process the constant rain of organic matter from above. Leafcutter ants march in endless columns, carrying bits of leaves like tiny green umbrellas back to their underground gardens where they cultivate fungus for food. These agricultural ants have been practicing sustainable farming for millions of years, their fungus gardens producing food while processing organic waste. Army ants flow across the forest floor like a living river, their columns sometimes stretching for hundreds of meters. They hunt not as individuals but as a collective organism, overwhelming any small creature in their path through sheer numbers and coordination. Other species have learned to follow these ant armies, with specialized birds feeding on insects flushed out by the ants' advance, creating a mobile ecosystem that moves through the forest like a traveling circus. Electric eels patrol the quieter backwaters and streams, generating charges of up to 600 volts to stun prey and defend themselves. Despite their name, they're not actually eels but a type of knife fish, and their electrical abilities are so sophisticated they can navigate and hunt in complete darkness using electrical fields like natural radar. The giant river otter, weighing up to 75 pounds and measuring 6 feet in length, travels in family groups that communicate constantly with a vocabulary of at least 12 distinct vocalizations. These social carnivores have been called the river wolves for their cooperative hunting techniques and fierce protection of their young. As 2025 continues to unfold, scientists working in the Amazon discover new species almost weekly, each one adding another note to the forest's vast symphony. Perhaps a butterfly with wings that shimmer like oil on water, or a tree that produces flowers directly from its trunk, or a fish that changes color like a living rainbow. The Amazon continues to remind us that the age of exploration is far from over, that mystery and wonder still flourish in places where nature is allowed to compose its own music. Rest now in this knowledge. Let it wash over you like warm rain on the forest floor. You are surrounded by millions of species, each one playing its part in a composition so complex and beautiful that no human mind could design it. Feel yourself becoming part of this symphony, your breathing synchronized with the forest's rhythm, your heartbeat matching the pulse of life that flows through every vine, every branch, every drop of water in this magnificent ecosystem. The forest breathes around you, its exhalation carrying the sweet scent of blooming orchids and the rich earthiness of soil teeming with life. Listen to the gentle percussion of rain beginning to fall, each drop a note in nature's endless song, each moment a reminder that you are part of something infinitely larger and more beautiful than any human creation. Let the symphony lull you deeper into peace, where jaguars pad silently through your dreams and river dolphins surface in the still waters of your imagination. Here, in the Amazon's embrace, surrounded by more life than exists anywhere else on Earth, you are home. The unseen world, uncontacted tribes and indigenous harmony in the deepest heart of the Amazon, where tributary streams wind through forests that have never known the sound of chainsaws or the footprint of rubber boots, live people whose ancestors have walked these same paths for thousands of years. They move through the green maze with the quiet confidence of those who belong completely to their landscape, their lives woven into the forest's rhythm as naturally as the songs of birds at dawn. Approximately 100 uncontacted tribes call the Amazon home, representing perhaps 10,000 individuals who have chosen to remain separate from the modern world. This represents the largest concentration of isolated peoples anywhere on Earth, living primarily in the remote borderlands where Brazil meets Peru and Bolivia, in regions so inaccessible that contact would require weeks of travel through trackless wilderness. These are not people lost in time, but communities that have made deliberate choices about how to live, drawing on millennia of accumulated wisdom about sustainable existence in one of Earth's most challenging environments. Their ancestors survived the colonial period, the rubber boom, and countless other upheavals by retreating deeper into the forest's protective embrace, and their descendants continue this tradition of self-determined isolation. The Vale do Javari, a region roughly the size of Austria in Brazil's western Amazon, harbors the highest concentration of uncontacted peoples in the world. Here, rivers wind through forests so dense that sunlight barely reaches the ground, creating a landscape of perpetual twilight where sound travels differently, and time seems to move at the forest's own pace. Brazilian government policy since 1987 has been to protect these groups' right to remain uncontacted, a philosophy sometimes called the Prime Directive, after the science fiction principle of non-interference with developing civilizations. In 2024, photographers captured extraordinary images of the Mashco Pyro, possibly Peru's largest uncontacted tribe, as approximately 750 individuals gathered on a riverbank near logging concessions in the Mater de Dios region. The images showed men, women, and children going about their daily activities, preparing food, tending to infants, crafting tools, their lives continuing in patterns that have remained essentially unchanged for generations. These glimpses into uncontacted life reveal not primitive survivalism but sophisticated adaptation. The Mashco Pyro craft intricate baskets from palm fronds, use plant-based medicines to treat ailments, and maintain complex social structures that ensure the survival and well-being of every community member. They read the forest like others read books, understanding which plants provide food during different seasons, which animals indicate changing weather patterns, and how to move through the wilderness leaving barely a trace of their passage. As 2025 unfolds, the Mashco Pyro continue their quiet resistance to contact, though logging operations bring increasing pressure to their traditional territories. Their presence near timber concessions represents not aggression but displacement, as their traditional hunting and gathering grounds shrink under pressure from resource extraction. Yet they persist, their resilience a testament to the possibility of living in harmony with rather than in opposition to the natural world. The Brazilian government's contact policy represents a dramatic shift from earlier approaches that assumed contact was inevitable and desirable. The tragic history of the rubber boom period, when indigenous populations faced violence, disease, and displacement, taught hard lessons about the consequences of forced contact. Today, FUNAI, Brazil's Indigenous Affairs Agency, works to protect uncontacted groups from unwanted contact, while respecting their autonomy to make their own choices about interaction with the outside world. This protection extends beyond simple non-interference to active guardianship of the territories where uncontacted peoples live. Indigenous reserves now protect approximately 13% of Brazil's land area, creating vast corridors of preserved rainforest that benefit not only the people who live there but the entire ecosystem. These protected areas maintain biodiversity, regulate water cycles, and store massive amounts of carbon, making indigenous rights inseparable from global environmental health. The story of the man of the hole, who died in 2022, illustrates both the tragedy and the dignity of isolation. For more than 2 decades, this individual lived entirely alone in the Rondônia region, the last survivor of his people after his tribe was massacred during conflicts with ranchers and loggers in the 1990s. Despite offers of contact and assistance, he chose to maintain his solitary existence, constructing traditional shelters, hunting with bows and arrows, and maintaining the cultural practices of his ancestors until his natural death. His story might seem impossibly lonely to those accustomed to constant connection, yet there's something profoundly moving about his determination to preserve his way of life against overwhelming odds. Funai workers monitored him from a respectful distance for decades, ensuring his safety while honoring his choice to remain alone. In his solitude, he carried the memory of his people and the knowledge of centuries of forest wisdom. Current estimates suggest that many uncontacted groups consist of small communities ranging from a few dozen to several hundred individuals. They live in traditional dwellings made from forest materials, palm thatch roofs, walls of woven vines, floors elevated on stilts during flood season. Their settlements move periodically to allow the forest to regenerate, a sustainable practice that ensures their presence enhances rather than degrades the ecosystem. These communities maintain sophisticated knowledge systems passed down through oral tradition. They know which fruits ripen during which months, understand the behavioral patterns of hundreds of animal species, and can predict weather changes days in advance by reading subtle signs in animal behavior and plant responses. Shamans and healers maintain deep understanding of plant medicines, using combinations of herbs and roots to treat everything from common ailments to spiritual disturbances. Their crafts represent the height of sustainable technology. Bows made from specific palm woods provide accuracy and power for hunting. Arrows tipped with various plant-based poisons are crafted for different types of game, with dosages carefully calculated to be effective, but not wasteful. Blowguns made from hollow plant stems can deliver small darts with precision over considerable distances, allowing hunters to take small birds and monkeys without alerting other animals to their presence. Women in these communities often specialize in plant knowledge, understanding which roots provide starch during lean seasons, which leaves can be woven into waterproof baskets, and which bark can be processed into cloth. They maintain seed collections that preserve genetic diversity of traditional crop varieties, acting as living libraries of agricultural knowledge developed over thousands of years of careful observation and experimentation. Children in uncontacted communities grow up with an intimacy with the natural world that few modern people can imagine. They learn to read animal tracks like written text, to identify plants by smell and touch, and to move through the forest with a silence that would be impossible for those raised in noisy urban environments. Their games often mimic hunting and gathering activities, turning necessary survival skills into joyful play. The sounds of uncontacted communities blend seamlessly with the forest's natural symphony. Their voices calling to each other across clearings might be mistaken for bird calls by unfamiliar ears. The rhythmic sound of women processing palm hearts or preparing cassava creates percussion that harmonizes with the dripping of water from leaves and the rustle of small animals in the underbrush. Evening in these communities brings storytelling traditions that preserve historical memory and cultural knowledge. Elders recount tales that contain practical information about animal behavior, seasonal changes, and resource management wrapped in narratives that entertain while educating. These stories serve as both entertainment and curriculum, ensuring that essential knowledge passes from generation to generation without writing or formal schooling. The spiritual lives of uncontacted peoples often center on the understanding that humans are just one part of a larger community that includes all living beings. Trees, animals, rivers, and even rocks are seen as persons deserving of respect and consideration. This worldview naturally leads to sustainable practices, as harming the forest would be equivalent to harming family members. Shamanic practices in these communities often involve plant medicines that alter consciousness, allowing practitioners to communicate with the spiritual aspects of the forest. These practices, developed over millennia of experimentation and refinement, represent sophisticated understanding of neurochemistry and psychology that modern science is only beginning to appreciate. Music in uncontacted communities typically uses instruments made from forest materials, drums from hollow logs and animal skins, flutes from bamboo or bird bones, rattles from gourds filled with seeds. The rhythms often mimic natural sounds, creating music that seems to emerge from the forest itself rather than being imposed upon it. As night falls in the territories where uncontacted peoples live, their fires create small points of light in the vast darkness of the forest. These fires represent more than just warmth and protection. They are symbols of human presence that has persisted in harmony with the wilderness for countless generations. The smoke from these fires carries the prayers and hopes of people who have chosen to live according to ancient wisdom rather than modern convenience. In 2025, protecting uncontacted peoples means protecting their right to remain uncontacted, while ensuring that the territories they depend on remain intact. This requires constant vigilance against illegal logging, mining, and land invasion, as well as ongoing efforts to educate the wider world about the value of cultural diversity and the importance of preserving alternative ways of life. Their existence reminds us that there are many ways to be human, many paths to prosperity and fulfillment that don't require participation in global economic systems or adoption of industrial technologies. In their quiet persistence, they offer a kind of hope, evidence that it's possible to live sustainably on Earth, to find meaning and community without destroying the natural systems that support all life. Rest now in the knowledge that somewhere in the vast Amazon, families are gathering around fires, elders are sharing stories with children, and people are living lives of dignity and purpose in harmony with the forest that sustains them. Their presence is a blessing to the world, a reminder that wisdom takes many forms and that the earth is large enough to support many different ways of being human. Feel yourself drifting deeper into sleep, protected by the same forest that has sheltered these communities for thousands of years. In your dreams, perhaps you'll walk the same paths they walk, hear the same bird calls that guide their mornings, and understand for a moment what it means to belong completely to a place that belongs completely to you. Imagine unseen eyes watching from the trees, their presence a quiet heartbeat of the forest, their lives a gentle reminder that the earth still holds space for mystery, for choices made in wisdom rather than haste, for people who understand that the greatest treasures cannot be extracted, but only experienced in the living moment of connection between human heart and forest soul. Myths and mysteries, tales of the lost Amazon drift now into the realm of stories and dreams, where the Amazon reveals not just its biological treasures, but its hold on the human imagination. For centuries, this green wilderness has been a canvas for our deepest fantasies about hidden worlds and lost civilizations, a place where the impossible seems perpetually possible, and where every shadow might conceal wonders beyond imagination. Let your mind wander back to the early 20th century, when a British explorer named Percy Harrison Fawcett moved through these forests like a character from an adventure novel. Fawcett believed passionately that somewhere in the Amazon's vastness lay the ruins of an ancient civilization he called a city of gold and wonder that would rival the greatest archaeological discoveries of his time. Picture Fawcett in his small wooden boat, drifting down brown rivers that reflected the endless green of the canopy above. His notebooks filled with observations about indigenous stories of great cities in the interior, tales of stone buildings rising from the forest floor, and people who worked with metals unknown to the coastal tribes. These stories fired his imagination and convinced him that the Amazon had been home to sophisticated civilizations long before European contact. The indigenous people Fawcett encountered spoke of their ancestors' great works, causeways that stretched for miles through the forest, raised fields that fed vast populations, and settlements that housed tens of thousands of people. But the academic world of his time dismissed these accounts as fantasy, convinced that the Amazon's poor soils could never have supported complex societies. This dismissal was based partly on the influential work of archaeologist Betty Meggers, who in 1971 published Amazonia, Man and Culture in a Counterfeit Paradise. Meggers argued that the Amazon's nutrient-poor soils and challenging environment made large-scale agriculture impossible, limiting indigenous populations to small, nomadic groups that could never have built the cities described in early colonial accounts. Fawcett disagreed with this academic consensus, trusting instead the stories told by indigenous elders and his own observations of earthworks and ancient roads glimpsed through breaks in the forest canopy. He spent years preparing for a final expedition that would prove his theories, gathering supplies and studying maps, driven by a vision of discovery that consumed his thoughts like a beautiful obsession. In 1925, Fawcett disappeared into the Amazon along with his son Jack and Jack's friend Raleigh Rimmel. Their last letter, sent from the frontier town of Cuiabá, spoke of their excitement about the journey ahead and their confidence that they would soon vindicate Fawcett's theories about ancient Amazonian civilizations. The mystery of their disappearance only added to the Amazon's mystique. Search expeditions found no trace of the three men, though they uncovered enough tantalizing clues to fuel decades of speculation. Some searchers reported finding metal objects that might have belonged to the expedition. Others claimed to have heard stories from indigenous people about white men who had passed through particular areas, but nothing definitive ever emerged. Fawcett's disappearance became part of the Amazon's mythology, another layer of mystery added to a forest that seemed to specialize in keeping secrets. His story captured imaginations around the world, inspiring novels and films that portrayed the Amazon as a place where European explorers could vanish without a trace, swallowed by the green immensity like stones dropped into deep water. But Fawcett wasn't the first European to report cities in the Amazon. In 1541, Spanish conquistador Francisco de Orellana led the first European expedition down the length of the Amazon River, a journey that took nearly a year and covered thousands of miles of unmapped territory. Orellana's chronicler, Gaspar de Carvajal, wrote detailed accounts of their encounters with indigenous peoples living in large, well-organized settlements along the riverbanks. Carvajal described cities that stretched for miles along the river, with populations so large that warriors could be mustered in thousands. He wrote of sophisticated pottery, elaborate featherwork, and agricultural systems that supported dense populations. The expedition encountered chiefs who ruled over multiple settlements and warriors who fought from elaborate dugout canoes that could hold dozens of men. These accounts were largely dismissed by later scholars as exaggerations designed to glorify Spanish achievements or justify their presence in the region. The idea that the Amazon could support large populations seemed to contradict everything Europeans thought they knew about tropical environments and indigenous capabilities. Yet, indigenous oral traditions consistently spoke of great civilizations in the Amazon's past. Stories passed down through generations described ancestors who built great works, managed vast territories, and lived in harmony with the forest while supporting populations far larger than anything seen in colonial or modern times. These oral histories described sophisticated agricultural techniques that could coax abundance from soils that appeared barren to European eyes. They spoke of raised fields that protected crops from flooding, canal systems that managed water flow across vast areas, and forest gardens that produced food while maintaining biodiversity. The stories also described social organizations of remarkable complexity, confederations of allied settlements that could coordinate activities across hundreds of miles, trading networks that moved goods from the Andes to the Atlantic coast, and knowledge systems that preserved information about everything from astronomy, medicine across generations without written language. As the 20th century progressed, occasional archaeological discoveries hinted that these stories might contain more truth than academic orthodoxy allowed. Aerial photographs revealed geometric earthworks hidden beneath the forest canopy, suggesting that human modification of the landscape had been far more extensive than previously imagined. But it wasn't until the development of new technologies that the full scope of pre-Columbian Amazonian civilizations began to emerge from the shadows of history. LiDAR light detection and ranging technology could penetrate the forest canopy and reveal archaeological features invisible to traditional survey methods. In 2025, Fawcett's dream lives on in a new generation of researchers who combine modern technology with respect for indigenous knowledge. His vision of a sophisticated Amazonian past has been vindicated, though not in the ways he imagined. The cities he sought were real, but they were indigenous achievements rather than transplanted old-world civilizations. The stories that fired Fawcett's imagination were attempts to preserve the memory of genuine historical achievements passed down through oral tradition despite centuries of disruption and displacement. The elders who told him of great cities and ancient roads were drawing on cultural memories that stretched back to a time when the Amazon supported civilizations that rivaled anything in the Old World. Today's researchers understand that Fawcett's mistake was not in believing these stories, but in interpreting them through European assumptions about what civilization should look like. He expected to find stone cities like those of Egypt or Greece, but Amazonian peoples built with materials that the forest reclaimed quickly: wood, earth, and plant fibers that left subtle traces rather than massive ruins. The romance of Fawcett's quest remains compelling partly because it represents humanity's eternal desire to discover something wonderful just beyond the edge of the known world. His faith in the existence of lost civilizations turned out to be justified, even if his understanding of their nature was incomplete. Imagine Fawcett's spirit somehow learning of the discoveries that would vindicate his beliefs: vast networks of settlements revealed by LiDAR, sophisticated agricultural systems that supported millions of people, and evidence that the Amazon was once one of the most densely populated regions on Earth. Perhaps somewhere in the green depths of our dreams, he finally finds his city of Z, not built of stone and gold but of human ingenuity and harmony with the natural world. The Amazon continues to reveal its secrets gradually, like a storyteller who understands that the best tales unfold slowly, allowing listeners to savor each revelation. Every new discovery adds another chapter to the ongoing story of human creativity and adaptation, proving that reality can be far more wonderful than fiction when we learn to read the landscape with eyes opened by respect and wonder. Let yourself drift now deeper into the forest's embrace, where the ghosts of ancient cities whisper through the leaves and the spirits of lost explorers continue their eternal quest for understanding. Here, in the space between waking and sleeping, the Amazon reveals truths that daylight logic cannot grasp, stories that can only be heard by those who listen with their hearts as well as their minds. Breathe deeply the air that has carried so many dreams and discoveries, so many hopes and mysteries. Feel yourself becoming part of the Amazon's ongoing story, another dreamer drawn by its promise of wonders yet to be revealed, another soul seeking connection with the magnificent mystery that flows like a green river through the heart of South America. The forest keeps its secrets patiently, knowing that truth unfolds in its own time, that the most profound discoveries cannot be forced, but must be received with the humility of those who understand that the greatest treasures are not always gold and gems, but knowledge and wonder, connection and understanding, the simple miracle of human consciousness awakening to the beauty and complexity of the natural world. Let the forest's ancient wisdom guide you deeper into rest, where lost cities shine in the moonlight of your dreams and the voices of vanished peoples sing lullabies composed of wind and time, memory and hope, the eternal human longing to find our place in the magnificent tapestry of life on Earth. Rest now in the knowledge that the Amazon's mysteries continue to unfold, that every day brings new discoveries, new confirmations that this world still holds wonders beyond our wildest imaginings. In your dreams tonight, perhaps you'll walk the paths that Fawcett dreamed of finding, see the cities that indigenous elders remembered in their stories, and understand for a moment the profound connection between human creativity and the natural world that has always been the Amazon's greatest treasure. Unveiling the past. Ancient cities revealed in the gentle pre-dawn light filtering through the forest canopy. Imagine scientific instruments sending invisible beams through the green maze above, penetrating centuries of growth to reveal secrets that have slept beneath the Amazon's protective embrace for over 1,000 years. This is LiDAR technology, light detection and ranging, working like a form of gentle magic to unveil the architectural achievements of peoples who understood how to build civilizations that enhanced rather than destroyed the forest ecosystem. Picture yourself floating high above the Bolivian Amazon in the early morning mist, watching as laser pulses map the hidden landscape below. The technology strips away the visual static of leaves and branches, revealing the bones of the land beneath and with it, the geometric patterns that could only have been created by human hands working in harmony with natural systems. In 2022, researchers using this remarkable technology made a discovery that reverberated through archaeological circles around the world. Hidden beneath the forest canopy of the Llanos de Moxos in Bolivia, they found the remains of an urban landscape that once supported nearly 1 million people in a region where today only scattered villages dot the seemingly endless wilderness. The LiDAR revealed a sophisticated network of settlements connected by raised causeways that stretched for hundreds of miles across the landscape. These weren't random villages, but components of an integrated urban system that managed water, agriculture, and transportation with an elegance that modern city planners might envy. At the heart of this rediscovered civilization stood massive earthen pyramids, some reaching 21 meters in height, structures that would have dominated the landscape like ancient skyscrapers. These pyramids were built not of stone, but of carefully selected and transported earth, their construction requiring sophisticated understanding of engineering principles and massive coordination of human labor. Imagine the scene 600 years ago, as thousands of workers carried baskets of earth to build these monuments grain by grain, their work synchronized by songs that echoed across the construction site. The pyramids served not just as religious or ceremonial centers, but as focal points for complex urban planning that integrated residential areas, agricultural zones, and transportation networks into a unified whole. The raised causeways that connected these settlements were marvels of engineering that allowed year-round travel, even during the intense flooding that characterizes the wet season in this region. Built above the flood line and stretching in perfectly straight lines across the landscape, these causeways required sophisticated surveying techniques and deep understanding of local hydrology. But perhaps most remarkably, This entire urban system was designed to work with rather than against the natural flooding cycles that define life in this part of the Amazon. Instead of trying to prevent floods, the ancient inhabitants channeled and managed water flow using an intricate network of canals and raised fields that turned the annual deluge into an advantage rather than a challenge. The raised fields, revealed by LiDAR as geometric patterns covering thousands of square kilometers, represent one of the most sophisticated agricultural systems ever developed in tropical environments. These fields were elevated above flood level and surrounded by canals that served multiple functions, storing water during dry periods, providing fish protein during wet seasons, and creating microclimates that extended growing seasons and increased crop yields. Archaeological evidence suggests this civilization flourished for over 800 years before being mysteriously abandoned around 1400 CE, roughly a century before European contact. The reasons for abandonment remain unclear, but the sophisticated infrastructure they left behind continued to function for decades, slowly being reclaimed by the forest that had coexisted with it for so long. The discovery of these Bolivian settlements was followed by an even more remarkable revelation from Ecuador. In 2024, an international team of researchers published findings from the Yupano Valley that redefined our understanding of pre-Columbian Amazonian urbanism. Using advanced LiDAR mapping techniques, they revealed a vast network of settlements in the foothills of the Andes that had remained hidden beneath dense forest for over 1,500 years. The scale of this discovery was breathtaking: more than 6,000 earthen platforms connected by an extensive road network covering over 300 square kilometers. Picture walking through this ancient landscape as it might have appeared during its heyday between 500 BCE and 600 CE. Massive rectangular platforms, some measuring 140 meters by 40 meters, supported residential complexes and ceremonial structures. These platforms were connected by straight roads up to 20 meters wide that maintained consistent grades across challenging topography, demonstrating engineering skills that rival modern highway construction. The largest of these platforms required moving an estimated 1 million cubic meters of earth, a construction project comparable to building a modern sports stadium using only human labor and simple tools. Yet this was accomplished by people working with stone tools and human muscle power, their achievements testament to the power of organized human cooperation and sophisticated planning. The road network that connected these settlements stretched for thousands of kilometers, creating transportation infrastructure that allowed rapid movement of people and goods across vast distances. Some roads were built on elevated causeways that crossed wetlands and rivers, while others were cut into hillsides with retaining walls that have survived for over 2 millennia. Archaeological analysis reveals that these settlements supported complex societies with specialized crafts, long-distance trade networks, and social hierarchies sophisticated enough to coordinate massive construction projects. Pottery found at these sites shows influences from both highland and lowland cultures, suggesting extensive trade relationships that connected the Amazon basin with the Andes and the Pacific coast. The agricultural systems that supported these populations were based on raised fields similar to those found in Bolivia, but adapted to the different environmental conditions of the Andean foothills. These fields were designed to drain excess water during heavy rains, while retaining moisture during dry periods, creating optimal growing conditions that could support population densities comparable to modern agricultural regions. Perhaps most remarkably, these achievements were built on a foundation that appears impossibly challenging the infamously poor soils of the Amazon basin. Yet archaeological excavation reveals that these ancient peoples had solved this problem through one of humanity's most elegant technological innovations, the creation of terra preta, or Amazonian dark earth. Terra preta represents a soil-building technique so sophisticated that modern scientists are still trying to understand exactly how it was created. These artificially enriched soils, found throughout areas of former Amazonian settlement, contain 2 to 3 times more organic matter and nutrients than surrounding natural soils, and remain fertile to this day, centuries after their creation. The secret appears to lie in a careful combination of organic waste management, strategic burning, and the addition of charcoal created through controlled pyrolyses of organic materials. The ancient inhabitants of these settlements essentially created their own agricultural substrate, transforming the challenge of poor soils into an opportunity for sustainable, intensive agriculture. Imagine the daily activities that created these remarkable soils: families processing food scraps into compost, artisans creating biochar through controlled burning of plant materials, farmers carefully mixing organic waste with clay and sand to create growing medium that would remain fertile for centuries. This was environmental engineering at its finest, technology that enhanced rather than degraded the natural systems it modified. The scale of terra preta creation suggests that ancient Amazonian peoples understood soil science at a level that equals or exceeds modern agricultural science. These soils cover an estimated 150,000 square kilometers of the Amazon basin, an area larger than England and Wales combined, representing perhaps the largest soil improvement project in human history. Chemical analysis of terra preta reveals carefully balanced ratios of nutrients that create optimal growing conditions for tropical crops. The soils maintain stable carbon storage for centuries, actually removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere rather than releasing it, making ancient Amazonian agriculture carbon negative rather than carbon positive. Recent research suggests that terra preta creation involved sophisticated understanding of microbiology, with ancient soil engineers cultivating beneficial bacteria and fungi that continue to enhance soil fertility today. These microorganisms create symbiotic relationships with plant roots that improve nutrient uptake and disease resistance, effects that persist even after centuries of abandonment. In 2025, LiDAR surveys continue to reveal new settlements throughout the Amazon basin, each discovery adding pieces to the puzzle of pre-Columbian Amazonian civilization. Perhaps archaeologists are uncovering the remains of astronomical observatories built into earthen platforms, or revealing irrigation systems that managed water across entire watersheds, or discovering workshop areas where artisans created the sophisticated pottery and textiles that traded across the continent. Each new revelation forces us to reconsider our assumptions about human capability and environmental relationship. These ancient Amazonians achieved what many modern societies struggle with: sustainable prosperity that enhanced rather than degraded the ecosystem that supported it. Their cities were not imposed upon the landscape, but grew from deep understanding of natural systems and seasonal cycles. Their agriculture worked with soil biology rather than against it. Their transportation networks followed topography rather than trying to dominate it. Their architecture used local materials and local knowledge to create structures that could withstand centuries of tropical weather while remaining beautiful and functional. Walk now through the shadows of these ancient plazas, where ceremonies once celebrated the connection between human community and natural abundance. Feel the packed earth beneath your feet, soil enriched by generations of careful cultivation and respect for the land's productive capacity. Listen for the echoes of voices that once filled these spaces with music and laughter, planning and prayer. The road stretches ahead of you, perfectly straight despite the rolling terrain, its alignment maintained through sophisticated surveying techniques that allowed ancient engineers to create transportation networks covering thousands of square kilometers. Along this road, traders once carried goods between highland and lowland communities, their passage maintaining connections that spanned ecological zones and cultural boundaries. Rest for a moment on one of the massive earthen platforms that once supported community centers where decisions were made collectively, where knowledge was shared between generations, where the wisdom necessary to sustain large populations in harmony with tropical ecosystems was preserved and transmitted through oral tradition and practical demonstration. As afternoon light filters through the canopy above, imagine the sounds that once filled this landscape, the voices of children playing between the raised fields, the songs of workers maintaining the canal systems, the calls of merchants announcing their wares in bustling markets where products from across the continent changed hands in networks of reciprocity and exchange. These were not primitive peoples struggling against a hostile environment, but sophisticated societies that had achieved what modern civilization still seeks: genuine sustainability that supports human flourishing while enhancing rather than degrading the natural systems upon which all life depends. The discoveries continue, each LiDAR survey revealing new aspects of civilizations that understood secrets we are only beginning to rediscover. Their achievements challenge our assumptions about progress and development, suggesting that the path to human prosperity need not require environmental destruction, but can instead enhance the biological richness and productivity of the landscapes we inhabit. Let yourself rest now in the shade of these ancient achievements, where the wisdom of past generations whispers through the leaves, and the earth itself tells stories of human ingenuity applied with reverence for the living world. Here, among the ruins of cities that once thrived in harmony with the forest, you can dream of what human civilization might become when guided by similar wisdom and respect for the magnificent complexity of our planet's living systems. Breathe deeply the air that has carried so many stories, so many innovations, so many demonstrations that human creativity and natural abundance can work together to create beauty and prosperity that endure for centuries. In your dreams tonight, perhaps you'll walk the straight roads that connected these ancient communities, participate in the ceremonies that celebrated human connection to the natural world, and understand for a moment what it means to live as part of rather than apart from the living systems that sustain all life. The Amazon today, a fragile harmony as the morning mist rises from the river, carrying with it the breath of countless trees that have photosynthesized through the night. We find ourselves in the Amazon of 2025, a forest that remains one of Earth's most vital ecosystems, while facing challenges that would have been unimaginable to the ancient peoples whose cities we have just explored. Picture yourself standing on the deck of a research vessel, anchored in the Rio Negro, watching the sun paint the water golden as it rises above the endless canopy. The forest around you looks timeless and unchanged, yet this tranquil scene masks complex dynamics of conservation and pressure, hope and concern that define the Amazon's current reality. The numbers tell a story of both resilience and vulnerability. According to Brazil's National Institute for Space Research, deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon fluctuates between 8,000 and 15,000 square kilometers annually, an area roughly equivalent to the state of Connecticut disappearing each year. Yet this represents only a tiny fraction of the forest's total area, and much of the Amazon remains as pristine as it was when the first Portuguese explorers glimpsed its vastness 5 centuries ago. The forces driving deforestation are complex and often illegal, operating in the shadows where law enforcement struggles to maintain presence across millions of square kilometers of wilderness. Illegal logging operations push deeper into protected areas, seeking valuable hardwood species like mahogany and Brazil, nut trees that command high prices in international markets. These loggers often work at night, using GPS coordinates to locate specific trees while avoiding detection by satellite monitoring systems. Illegal mining presents another challenge, particularly in areas where gold deposits attract prospectors willing to work in some of Earth's most remote locations. These mining operations, called garimpos in Portuguese, can contaminate rivers with mercury used in gold extraction, affecting fish populations and the indigenous communities that depend on them for protein. Yet for every story of environmental pressure, there are equally compelling stories of protection and recovery. Indigenous territories now cover approximately 13% of Brazil's land area, creating vast reserves where traditional peoples maintain their ancestral ways of life, while serving as guardians of biodiversity and climate stability. These indigenous reserves represent one of the most successful conservation strategies ever implemented. Satellite data consistently shows that deforestation rates within indigenous territories are dramatically lower than in surrounding areas, even when those areas are nominally protected as national parks or reserves. This success reflects not just traditional knowledge, but active choice. Indigenous communities choosing to maintain forest cover because their cultural and economic systems depend on ecosystem integrity. The city of Manaus continues to serve as the Amazon's primary urban center, its population now exceeding 2.5 million people, yet still surrounded by an ocean of green that stretches to every horizon. The city's growth has been accompanied by increasing sophistication in research and conservation efforts, with institutions like the National Institute of Amazonian Research conducting studies that inform global understanding of tropical ecology. Manaus also exemplifies the challenges of balancing development with conservation. The city's free trade zone attracts manufacturing industries seeking tax advantages, creating jobs and economic opportunities while increasing pressure on surrounding ecosystems. Yet many of these industries are also investing in sustainability initiatives, recognizing that their long-term prosperity depends on the health of the environment that defines the region's identity. In 2025, indigenous-led conservation initiatives represent some of the most innovative approaches to forest protection. Young indigenous leaders are combining traditional knowledge with modern technology, using drones and satellite imagery to monitor their territories, while maintaining practices of sustainable resource management that have preserved forest health for generations. These initiatives often involve partnerships between indigenous communities and international conservation organizations, but they are led by indigenous peoples themselves, reflecting growing recognition that the most effective conservation strategies emerge from communities that have lived sustainably in these environments for centuries. Global climate research has established the Amazon's critical role in planetary climate regulation. The forest's trees transpire approximately 20 billion tons of water into the atmosphere daily, creating weather patterns that bring rainfall not just to the Amazon basin, but to agricultural regions throughout South America. This river in the sky demonstrates how local conservation efforts have global implications. Recent scientific studies suggest that parts of the Amazon may be approaching critical tipping points where forests could transition to grassland, particularly in areas that experience combined pressures from deforestation and climate change. Yet other research suggests that the forest's resilience is greater than previously understood, with some areas showing remarkable ability to recover from disturbance when given protection and time. The ongoing LiDAR surveys that revealed ancient cities continue to make new discoveries. each one adding to our understanding of how human societies can thrive in harmony with tropical forest ecosystems. These archaeological insights provide practical guidance for modern sustainability efforts, demonstrating techniques for soil improvement, water management, and sustainable agriculture that could inform contemporary forest management. Conservation technology continues to evolve, with artificial intelligence now helping to analyze satellite imagery and identify deforestation in near real time. These systems can alert authorities to illegal logging operations within hours of trees being cut, dramatically improving the effectiveness of enforcement efforts across vast and remote territories. International funding for Amazon conservation has increased substantially in recent years, with both government and private initiatives providing resources for everything from indigenous territory protection to research into sustainable forest products. These investments recognize that preserving the Amazon benefits not just local communities, but global climate stability and biodiversity conservation. Educational initiatives in 2025 focus increasingly on helping urban populations understand their connection to forest health. Schools in Brazilian cities now regularly include curriculum about Amazon ecology and indigenous cultures, helping to build political support for conservation policies among voters who may never visit the forest but whose lives are affected by its health. Sustainable forest product development offers promising pathways for economic development that enhances rather than degrades forest ecosystems. Brazil nut harvesting, acai berry collection, and sustainable timber management create economic incentives for maintaining forest cover while providing livelihoods for forest communities. Ecotourism continues to grow as an economic alternative to extractive industries, bringing visitors from around the world to experience the Amazon's beauty while generating revenue for local communities. These tourism operations often employ indigenous guides and support community-based conservation efforts, creating economic incentives for maintaining traditional knowledge and practices. Scientific research stations throughout the Amazon continue to make discoveries that inform global understanding of tropical ecology, climate change, and biodiversity conservation. These facilities often partner with indigenous communities, combining traditional knowledge with modern scientific methods to develop more comprehensive understanding of forest ecosystems. The floating communities that dot the Amazon's waterways continue to demonstrate remarkable adaptation to seasonal flooding and changing environmental conditions. These communities have developed housing designs, agricultural techniques, and social organizations that allow them to thrive in environments that would challenge conventional development approaches. River management remains crucial to Amazon conservation, with healthy watersheds supporting both human communities and wildlife populations. Efforts to reduce pollution from mining and agriculture focus increasingly on upstream prevention rather than downstream cleanup, recognizing that river health affects entire ecosystems. Climate change presents both challenges and opportunities for Amazon conservation. While rising temperatures and changing precipitation patterns create stress for some species and ecosystems, they also highlight the forest's importance for global climate stability and create international momentum for conservation investment. The forest's carbon storage capacity represents one of its most economically valuable services, with carbon credit programs providing new revenue streams for forest conservation. These programs allow communities and organizations to earn income by maintaining forest cover, creating direct economic incentives for conservation. As 2025 progresses, technological innovations continue to improve forest monitoring and protection capabilities. Sensor networks can now detect illegal logging activities in real time, while genetic analysis helps track timber supply chains and identify illegally harvested wood in international markets. Community-based conservation programs recognize that local people are the most effective forest guardians when they have adequate resources and political support. These programs focus on strengthening traditional governance systems while providing access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities that reduce pressure for unsustainable resource extraction. The Amazon's biodiversity continues to astound researchers, with new species discoveries occurring almost weekly throughout the basin. These discoveries remind us that our knowledge of forest ecosystems remains incomplete, and that conservation efforts must account for species and ecological relationships that we have yet to identify. International cooperation on Amazon conservation has strengthened considerably, with neighboring countries coordinating policies and sharing resources for forest protection. This cooperation recognizes that the Amazon ecosystem transcends political boundaries and requires regional coordination for effective protection. Youth engagement in conservation efforts represents one of the most hopeful trends in 2025, with young people throughout the Amazon region developing innovative approaches to environmental protection, while maintaining connections to traditional knowledge and cultural practices. The forest continues to breathe around you, its massive trees processing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen that travels on wind currents around the globe. Each breath you take contains molecules that may have passed through Amazon leaves just weeks ago, a reminder of your direct physical connection to this distant forest. Rest now in the knowledge that the Amazon endures, that countless people are working to protect its integrity, and that the ancient wisdom of sustainable forest management continues to guide modern conservation efforts. The challenges are real, but so is the resilience of both the forest and the communities that call it home. In your dreams tonight, let yourself imagine an Amazon where ancient cities once again thrive in harmony with the forest, where the wisdom of indigenous peoples guides global environmental policy, where the songs of countless species create a symphony that celebrates the enduring partnership between human creativity and natural abundance. The forest keeps its promises to those who keep their promises to the forest, and in that reciprocal relationship lies hope for a future where the Amazon continues to be what it has always been, a source of wonder, wisdom, and life itself for our planet and all who share it. A lullaby from the rainforest as our journey through the Amazon draws to a gentle close. Let yourself settle deeper into the embrace of this magnificent forest, where every leaf holds a story and every shadow promises peace. The river flows beside you now with the patience of centuries, its brown waters carrying the memories of mountains and the dreams of the sea, while overhead the canopy sways in a breeze that has traveled across thousands of miles of green wilderness to reach this moment of perfect tranquility. For millennia, the Amazon has stood as a guardian of secrets, a cradle of life, whispering to those who listen with hearts open to wonder. This ancient forest has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and evolution of countless species, the slow dance of continents, and the patient work of rivers, carving new paths through landscapes that change like poems written in water and time. Tonight, you have drifted through this living cathedral, discovering worlds within worlds, stories within stories, each revelation a gift from the forest's inexhaustible treasury of marvels. You have floated above the canopy, where toucans call their bright greetings to the dawn, descended to the forest floor where army ants march in perfect formation through shadows that have remained cool and green for millions of years. You have met the people who move through this wilderness like spirits of the forest itself, their footsteps so soft they barely disturb the carpet of fallen leaves, their lives woven into the rhythms of rain and sun, flood and drought, with an intimacy that speaks of love cultivated across generations of careful attention to the world's most subtle signals. In the hidden cities revealed by modern technology, you have walked among the architectural achievements of peoples who understood that human prosperity and natural abundance are not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of a single magnificent possibility. Their raised fields and earthen pyramids, their straight roads and sophisticated drainage systems, all speak of civilizations that enhanced rather than diminished the biological richness of the landscapes they called home. The Amazon's voice is a symphony composed of millions of instruments, the percussion of raindrops on countless leaves, the wind section of breezes moving through branches at different heights, the brass fanfare of howler monkeys announcing the dawn, the delicate string music of insects calling to their mates in frequencies that dance at the edges of human hearing. This musical meditation has accompanied every step of our journey, growing richer and more complex, as your awareness expanded to encompass the incredible diversity of life that thrives in every cubic meter of Amazon air, every handful of forest soil, every drop of river water that flows past our imaginary boat on its ancient journey from mountains to sea. In 2025, the forest continues to reveal its wonders to those who approach with respect and patience. Scientists are still discovering new species almost weekly, each one a reminder that our world remains far more mysterious and magnificent than we dare to imagine. Perhaps tomorrow they will find a butterfly whose wings shimmer with colors that have no names, or a flower that blooms only during eclipses, or a fish that navigates by magnetic fields invisible to human senses. The ancient wisdom preserved in indigenous oral traditions continues to inform modern understanding of sustainable living, offering guidance for civilizations seeking to thrive without destroying the ecological foundations of life itself. These teachings remind us that abundance and restraint can coexist, that prosperity and humility can walk hand in hand, that the greatest treasures are not those we extract from the earth, but those we discover in learning to live as part of the web of relationships that connects all living beings. As you rest now in the forest's gentle embrace, feel yourself becoming part of this vast community of life. Your breathing synchronizes with the respiration of trees that have stood for centuries. Your heartbeat matches the pulse of sap rising through countless trunks. Your dreams join the nocturnal wanderings of jaguars, and the midnight flights of bats navigating by echolocation through a three-dimensional maze of branches and leaves. The Amazon's lullaby is not just music but medicine, not just sound but healing, a sonic massage that releases tensions accumulated through days of hurry and noise, replacing anxiety with wonder, replacing isolation with connection to something infinitely larger and more beautiful than any human creation. Let the river's gentle current carry away whatever worries you brought to this peaceful place. Feel them dissolving like morning mist, becoming part of the forest's endless cycles of renewal and transformation. Here, in this sanctuary of green, there is no need to carry burdens that belong to other times and places. The forest offers to hold whatever weight you need to release, transforming it through the same alchemy that turns fallen leaves into soil, soil into new growth into habitat for creatures whose existence is itself a form of prayer. The sounds around you now are the planet's most ancient lullaby, unchanged in its essential rhythms since the first forests began to sing millions of years ago. This is the sound of life celebrating itself, of diversity finding harmony, of countless individual voices joining in choruses that span continents and centuries. Night-blooming flowers open their petals to the darkness, releasing fragrances that will attract the moth species that have co-evolved with them across millions of years of patient mutual adaptation. Somewhere in the canopy, A family of sloths hangs motionless in sleep that is so profound it seems like meditation, their bodies hosting gardens of algae and communities of insects in relationships so intimate they blur the boundaries between individual organisms. The forest floor pulses with life invisible to casual observation: bacteria and fungi working in partnership with tree roots to create the underground internet that allows plants to share nutrients and information across vast distances. This network operates with a sophistication that makes human communication systems seem crude by comparison, transmitting chemical signals that warn of drought or insect attacks, sharing resources between species that have learned to see their survival as inseparable from the health of the whole forest community. River dolphins surface in the moonlight, their intelligence evident in playful interactions that seem to serve no purpose beyond joy itself. These ancient mammals have adapted to life in brown water, where visibility is measured in inches rather than feet, developing echolocation abilities so sophisticated they can distinguish between different types of fish by the sound of their swim bladders, navigate through flooded forests by reading the acoustic signatures of submerged trees. The night air carries the songs of countless frog species, each one contributing its own voice to the forest's evening choir. Some sound like tiny bells ringing in the darkness, others like wooden blocks tapped together in complex rhythms, still others like miniature engines starting up in the distance. This amphibian orchestra has been performing the same compositions for millions of years, yet each night brings subtle variations, improvisations that reflect the current weather, the phase of the moon, the season's position in the forest's endless cycle of renewal. In the distance, a jaguar calls, its voice carrying the authority of the forest's apex predator. Yet there is something almost musical about the sound, a resonance that speaks of power held in perfect balance with wisdom. This magnificent cat moves through the forest like liquid shadow, its spotted coat providing camouflage so perfect that it can remain invisible even when standing mere meters from observers. Jaguars are equally at home in trees, on the ground, or in water, making them perhaps the most adaptable large predators on Earth. The forest breathes around you now with the rhythm of centuries, each exhalation releasing oxygen that travels on wind currents around the globe, each inhalation processing carbon dioxide that might have been produced by cities thousands of miles away. This respiratory exchange connects you directly to the Amazon's global significance, making every breath you take a reminder of your participation in planetary systems that operate on scales beyond ordinary human comprehension. As sleep approaches, let yourself surrender to the forest's ancient patience. Here, time moves differently than in the world of schedules and deadlines. Here, seasons flow into one another like musical movements in a symphony that has been playing since the continents first took their current positions. Here, the urgent demands of modern life fade into irrelevance, replaced by the deeper rhythms of growth and rest, activity and stillness that govern all healthy living systems. The Amazon's wisdom is not found in books or lectures, but in the direct experience of belonging to something larger than individual consciousness. It speaks through the sensation of warm air moving across your skin, through the subtle perfumes of night-blooming flowers, through the distant splash of a fish jumping in moonlight-silvered water. This wisdom cannot be grasped by thinking but only received by feeling, absorbed through the same processes that allow trees to convert sunlight into the energy of life itself. Feel yourself becoming part of the forest's vast circulatory system, your breathing synchronized with the transpiration of millions of trees, your heartbeat matching the pulse of sap rising through countless trunks toward the canopy, where photosynthesis converts light into the chemical energy that powers the entire ecosystem. You are not separate from this process, but a participant in it, your body made from elements that have cycled through countless other living beings, your consciousness arising from the same evolutionary processes that created every other form of awareness in the forest. The river continues its eternal conversation with the sea, carrying nutrients from the mountains to fertilize ocean ecosystems thousands of miles away, while trade winds carry moisture from the ocean back to fall as rain that feeds the forest in cycles that have operated since the Amazon basin first formed. This is circulation on a planetary scale, yet you are part of it in every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of peaceful awareness that connects your individual existence to the larger patterns that sustain all life. Indigenous elders say that the forest dreams, and that those who sleep within its embrace sometimes share in those dreams, experiencing visions that reveal the connections between all living things, the stories that trees tell each other through chemical signals, the songs that rivers sing as they carry the memories of their journeys from source to sea. Tonight, as you drift deeper into rest, perhaps you will receive such visions, finding yourself swimming with dolphins through flooded forests, flying with toucans above the endless canopy, or walking with jaguars along trails that exist in the space between sleeping and waking. The forest's lullaby grows softer now, as if recognizing that you are ready for the deepest levels of rest. The rhythm of rain on leaves becomes gentler, the calls of night birds more distant, the rustle of small animals in the underbrush quieter and more intermittent. Even the river seems to flow more silently, its brown waters reflecting stars that shine through gaps in the canopy like windows into infinite space. This is the Amazon's gift to those who receive it with open hearts, not just rest but renewal, not just sleep but restoration of the deep connections that modern life often obscures. Here, surrounded by more biodiversity than exists anywhere else on Earth, you remember your place in the family of living beings, your role in the ongoing story of life's creative experimentation with form and consciousness, beauty and adaptation, individual expression and collective harmony. Let the forest hold you now as it has held countless millions of creatures across geological ages, offering the same shelter, the same nourishment, the same patient acceptance of each being's unique contribution to the vast symphony of existence. You are safe here, welcome here, at home here in ways that transcend geography and species, belonging and nationality, all the categories that seem important in daylight but dissolve in the universal embrace of sleep and dreams. The Amazon endures, has always endured, will continue to endure as long as there are those who understand that some treasures cannot be extracted but only experienced, cannot be possessed but only shared, cannot be consumed but only received with the gratitude that recognizes every moment of connection to the natural world as a gift beyond any possible price. In your dreams tonight, let the forest's ancient wisdom guide you to places where wonder is the only currency, where beauty is the only law, where the love that connects all living beings flows as freely as the river that carries the Amazon's blessings from the mountains to the sea and back again, in cycles that measure time not in hours or days, but in the patient heartbeats of geological epochs. Sleep now, cradled by the Amazon's eternal lullaby, where every leaf whispers stories of resilience and renewal, where every shadow promises mysteries yet to be discovered, where every moment of rest becomes part of the forest's own dreaming, adding your unique voice to the chorus of consciousness that sings continuously in the Earth's largest remaining wilderness. The river flows, the forest breathes, the night embraces all creatures in its gentle darkness, and you are part of this magnificent whole, connected to every other being by threads of breath and light, water and wonder, in the endless web of relationships that makes life itself possible on our beautiful, mysterious, ever-surprising planet. Rest deeply now, and dream of green places where ancient wisdom lives in every tree, where the future grows from seeds planted by countless generations of forest gardeners, where the Amazon's greatest treasure, the possibility of living in harmony with the natural world, continues to offer hope and guidance to any who approach with respect and wonder, humility and love. The forest's lullaby fades now into the deeper music of your own breathing, your own heartbeat, your own journey into the restorative darkness where dreams and reality merge in visions of a world where humanity remembers its place in the family of Earth's children, where technology serves life rather than consuming it, where the Amazon's example of abundance achieved through diversity inspires civilizations that enhance rather than degrade the magnificent complexity of our planet's living systems. Sleep peacefully, forest dreamer, held by the same forces that sustain jaguars and butterflies, towering trees and tiny frogs, mighty rivers and gentle rain, in the Amazon's eternal embrace where every ending becomes a beginning, every sleep a preparation for new dawn, every dream a seed of possibility planted in the fertile darkness of a world still young enough to grow into forms of beauty we can barely imagine. The forest keeps its promises to those who keep their promises to the forest, and in that ancient covenant lies the hope of a future where the Amazon's lullaby continues to sing across the centuries, carrying forward the memories of all who have found peace in its green embrace, all who have learned to hear in its vast symphony the voice of life itself, celebrating its endless creativity, its infinite capacity for renewal, its eternal invitation to join in the dance of existence that transforms every individual note into part of a magnificent, ever-evolving composition that includes every being, every breath, every dream of harmony between human consciousness and the living earth that is our only home.